Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
And good afternoon. Yes, welcome to the home of common sense. Lots to get through here this afternoon. And, of course, Rachel Reeves facing potential ethics inquiry tonight following those allegations that she misled the public over the state of the nation's finances ahead of this week's budget. We're asking the question, should Rachel Reeves resign? Do you not think this is a resigning matter? Keir Starmer says, nothing to see here. Everything was legit and above board. We'll come to that in a couple of moments. Also this afternoon, David Lammy has been warned that plans to restrict jury trials could threaten free speech. The Free Speech Union says defendants in offensive speech cases are almost twice as likely to be acquitted by juries than by magistrates. What is behind that? We'll look more at the big jury debate throughout the course of the programme. And Jeremy Corbyn's Your Party's inaugural conference has erupted into open conflict with the co-founder, Zara Sultana, and the leader, Mr Corbyn, turning on each other already. They've only just got started. What the heck is going on? We'll have more details on that as well. Everything you need to know, all the breaking news right here on Talk 0344 499 1000. So we have a problem, and this goes right to the top. Sir Keir Starmer was aware that there was no black hole in the public finances, but he approved Rachel Reeves' quote, lies that exaggerated the fiscal shortfall. Now, Downing Street have confirmed the Prime Minister was happy with a speech by Miss Reeves that critics said misled the public about the need for tax rises, which we all saw aplenty in the budget last week. This was despite Keir Starmer being made aware of official forecasts that showed her fiscal rules would be met and that the Office of Budget Responsibility's downgrade to productivity had not led to a shortfall in public finances. Today, Mr Starmer fought to defend his Chancellor and his government. Have a little listen to the Prime Minister in action just a few hours ago on this very point.
We had already made commitments, which I think I've expressed to you and many others many times over, that we were going to protect our public services, particularly NHS, to cut borrowing costs and to bear down on the cost of living. So we had, on the one hand, £16 billion less than we might otherwise have had. We had clear commitments that we'd made throughout the process as to what it was we were going to achieve. Therefore, against that backdrop, it was inevitable that we would always have to raise revenue. So there's no misleading there.
There's no misleading there. Or is there? Rachel Reeves is under pressure to quit as a result of this after the OBR published a detailed account of its discussions with the Treasury that took place before her remarks. Now, these showed that the Chancellor and her officials had falsely exaggerated the fiscal shortfall she faced as she plotted her £30 billion tax budget raid, allegedly, and this is the allegation, to save her skin and save Keir Starmer's skin as well. Ministers have accused Sir Keir and Rachel Reeves of misleading the Cabinet by claims there was a hole in the public finances. And, of course, ministers, after they had a big meeting about this in the Cabinet, ministers emerged absolutely convinced that the public finances were in such a dire state that a manifesto-breaking tax increase was necessary. But in fact, the Office of Budget Responsibility had already informed the Chancellor privately that the downgrade had been more than offset by higher than expected tax revenues. And that, of course, was when they suddenly declared, having had weeks of, we're going to have to raise taxes, we're going to have to raise taxes, and they suddenly said, oh, we're not going to raise taxes. You remember that. It was told that on October the 31st, she had 4.2 billion quid's worth of surplus, but the information was not shared with the Cabinet or the public. Only she and Starmer were aware of improvements to the forecast. I would suggest this is so darn serious that she's got to go. And one of the reasons she won't go, of course, is that when your Chancellor goes, they often say you could start the clock on when the Prime Minister might follow. 0344 499-1000. Give me your assessment of this and whether you think, as a result of what we are now learning today, and this is absolutely, it's not really a rumour, it's not really tittle-tattle, it's something much bigger than that. The OBR had informed the Chancellor that the downgrade had been more than offset by higher than expected tax revenues. She didn't need to raise the taxes, but she went around telling anyone that cared to listen that she had to and had no choice. What are we making of this? Well, thankfully, in the studio, Dave Wooding joins us, columnist at The Sun, political journalist of some experience, I should add. Good afternoon to you, Dave. Let's have a little listen, firstly, because, of course, the ethics inquiry tonight will have a look at what has happened here. These are allegations she misled the public over the state of the nation's finances ahead of the budget last week. At the weekend, she insisted she didn't lie. Here she is talking to Sky News.
I just asked you, did you lie? And I have to say, the answer I was looking for was no. And well, I didn't hear the word no.
But you also asked about welfare in that question.
No, I just asked you, did you lie?
Of course I didn't.
Good, OK. By the way, was the Prime Minister informed through all of this process?
Yes.
And he was right there with you on it all?
Yes, of course.
Decisions you made, what you said on November the 4th?
Yes, we are a partnership.
We are a partnership, Dave. Something fishy is going on here, because the OBR, and I don't think they've got any reason to lie, are saying, oh, actually, all this information was with the Chancellor before the budget, and the Cabinet, apparently they weren't even aware. They were convinced that, you know, there was a big problem here, so off she went with her budget, and now we learn there was things she already knew.
Yeah, I mean, she clearly not only misled the country with that press conference she had and the constant briefing about how bad the economy was, or the public finances, but they weren't even discussing it in Cabinet. No. And all these briefings that were coming back in the middle of September from the Office for Budget Responsibility to the Treasury, she just ridden roughshod over them, decided we're going to put taxes up anyway. It's quite astonishing, really, and the whole thing was unravelling before the budget was even announced. Yeah. And now we know about the OBR. Then it's getting even worse.
And of course, the sort of layman's explanation of this is that she was forced to put up taxes because of a fiscal shortfall, and the OBR saying, well, there wasn't really a fiscal shortfall in the way that you were talking about it. In fact, her reasons for putting up taxes was to pay for welfare, which of course is a political decision. Some might say cynically based on saving her boss's skin.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the simple truth is, she was telling us there was a huge black hole somewhere between 20 and 30, sometimes even 40 billion pounds to fill in the budget, raising expectations that there would be taxes. And in fact, there wasn't a black hole at all. In fact, there was a surplus. Yeah. The only black hole is the one that she's in, and she's still digging even deeper in. Yeah. I mean, it was September the 17th when the Office for Budget Responsibility told the Treasury that the shortfall was only about 2.5 billion, nothing like 30 billion. Yep. And then again on September the 26th, they said, well, in fact, there's a bit of a surplus here, you know, and then it goes up to 4.1 billion surplus. Yeah. And 4 days after being told out, 5 days, I think it was October the 31st, she was told that, and then on November the 4th she came out with that press conference again, which is unprecedented, which made me think, I don't know about you and your viewers, but the Chancellor of the Exchequer coming out before a budget and telling us the situation is pretty grim, and we're going to have to put taxes up, when she already knew that it wasn't as grim as she was making out.
I mean, the head honchos at the OBR must have sitting there sort of choking on their frosties when they heard her give that speech saying, you know, oh, you know, it's terrible. They, well, hang on, we just had a meeting with her telling her it's nowhere near as bad as she thought.
Yeah, absolutely. And members of the Cabinet, meanwhile, who were this morning, one member of the Cabinet saying that we were kept in the dark about all this, they would have had some input. They would have said, well, you can't do this. And the truth is, it just raises the view that she was putting the taxes up purely to buy off the restless left-wingers on the back bench who wanted massive welfare spending. Remember them all waving their order papers in cheering when she
Oh, they
scrapped
loved
the-
it. Yeah, if you can throw other people's money into a pot, then that's what gets them out of bed in the morning over there on the Labour backbenches.
And the only other explanation is that she's saving a war chest for a giveaway for the election 3 years down the road. The way things are looking, she's not going to make it to the election 3 days.
So how serious is this? Because, of course, we've seen chancellors come and go. I suppose, you think of famous chancellor resignations. Geoffrey Howe is obviously the famous one, the cricket bat speech that followed. That was way magnitude. That this would be an issue. I can't see any other way. I know we can, journalistically, you can make some mischief with it. Did she lie? Did she not lie? It appears all the evidence is there to say she had information which she denied.
Yeah, and indeed, today we're learning that the Tories have reported her to the FCA, the Financial Conduct Authority, because she's accused there of market abuse because of the lies. And Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform, has reported her to the Ethics Standards Authority, saying, she may have broken the ministerial code by not being truthful to Parliament and to the rest of us about the state of the finances. But yes, your point about what she was doing, it's clearly if she's misleading the public on such a big scale, she may have to resign. The difference between her and Geoffrey Howe, the case to which you refer, is that Geoffrey Howe resigned because of a fallout with the Prime Minister. The difference here is that the Prime Minister and the Chancellor are joined at the hip.
They're in it together.
They are very much in it together. And he has now come out and said that I knew everything that Rachel Reeves knew. So he can't say now...
Does that make it worse, though?
It does.
Because he's saying if he knew that then, now we're reading this. I mean, and I don't... The meetings are there with the OBR. We know, and Downing Street confirming certain elements that there was a meeting. So we know that she was told about this, but then didn't reveal that to Cabinet, and therefore, by definition, not to the public as well, and went ahead with the budget, the backdrop of which was that we are 30 billion quid short. Which is not true.
Absolutely not true.
I don't know how you get out of that, Dave, other than you do that political thing of just sticking with it, grinning, bearing it, and hoping, another story comes along and overtakes it.
And we had Darren Jones, the Chief Secretary of Treasury, doing the rounds this morning, telling us all, no, well, there was a fiscal gap. It's not the same as a black hole. The money was clearly being spent in order to put the benefit bills up. I mean, she didn't have to do some of the extra spending that she did. She could have left things as they were and left taxes as they were.
Yeah, you'd have thought so. We're asking that question, should Rachel Reeves go? 0344 499 1000. Dave Wooding is with us. Let's move to this story, Dave. This has been rumbling along for about a week now. David Lammy last week proposing to restrict jury trials. It's hugely contentious, of course, particularly among lawyers. This is despite many saying that they are now fundamental to our democracy. Let's have a listen to Robert Jenrick on this very point.
The Justice Secretary is plotting to discard centuries of jury trials without so much of a by your leave. And where is the Justice Secretary to answer for this? Do we need to send out a search party to Savile Row in case he's gone suit shopping again this morning? Jury trials are fundamental to the justice system. They're fundamental to our democracy, and we must protect them. Not my words. Those of the Justice Secretary himself. And this time, he was right. There is wisdom in 12 ordinary citizens pooling their collective experiences of the world. But now he's in government. He's doing the complete opposite. He blames the court backlog. But if the courtrooms standing empty this year were used, the backlog would be down by 5,000 to 10,000 cases.
That's a lovely line, a search party to Savile Row after the Suitgate debacle a couple of weeks back. I mean, it's always going to be contentious. It seems, on balance, very few people agree with the idea of scrapping juries. I mean, we spoke to Sir Simon Jenkins last week. He felt very serious about this. I know he's not a lawyer, he's an author and a journalist, but nonetheless, he said, well, there's only about 1% of all cases are jury trials. And in fact, he thought it was ridiculous that we allowed 12 ordinary people to judge minutiae details of the British law. And I said, well, it's guided by a judge. They don't just get stuck in a room with 10 million files to digest and go through and come up with an answer. But he thought it was a no-no. But if you listen to most barristers, whether they're prosecutors or defenders, they seem to think this is an outrage, Dave.
Well, I agree. We've had jury trials since the middle of the 12th century, almost 900 years, brought in by Henry II, and it's a bulwark of British democracy and a cornerstone of the justice system. To remove this is an outrage, frankly. I mean, the idea is that we are tried by 12 men and women who are plucked from obscurity to debate and decide on balance whether or not somebody is innocent or guilty. Now, if you leave it to a judge, I mean, look, we've had judges doing migration tribunals, immigration tribunals and asylum cases, and we've seen what happens there. Chicken nuggets. You can't send somebody back because he doesn't like the chicken nuggets in Albania or wherever it was.
I mean, if it was KFC, I might be with him, but we're talking chicken nuggets here, for goodness sake.
but if you're going to allow them to oversee criminal justice as well, where's the common sense going to come? Some of these people are liberal-minded judges, often out of touch. You hear them saying, the Beatles, who are they? Oh, popular music beat combo. We've heard all that before. Do we want to give all the power over to them? And of course, as it says in the Daily Telegraph today, they've got some figures from the Free Speech Union, which show that in magistrates' court, where of course the magistrate decides, people who are up on free speech issues are twice as likely to be convicted as they would be with a jury, because juries have common sense.
And there's a collective nature, and that collective nature leads to debate and discussion, and you can carry on for, often, on extreme examples, juries can be out for weeks because they are properly chewing over
and they take it seriously.
All possibilities.
I've sat on a jury once. I found it quite tedious, the case I had to deal with, and a lot of sitting around, but nevertheless I did my bit. And I was speaking to one journalist friend who was on a jury. A more interesting case, it was a rape case in fact, where the prosecution put up their case quite powerfully. The defence put up the case, wasn't a very good defence, and the judge was directing them, and they kept coming back asking questions because they were not happy about things. And it's only by 2 or 3 of those questions they asked that some evidence emerged that hadn't been put out in the court, and the man was acquitted. Now,
so it's down to the
I'm
jury,
just saying,
really,
the jury have common sense, and they see through a lot of these things that lawyers don't.
We're going to be back with more from Dave in just a couple of moments. 0344 499 1000. Your thoughts on Rachel Reeves, Keir Starmer? It's an absolute flipping mess over there at number 10 and 11 right now. What did they know? Well, we know what they knew. Why are they denying that they knew it? And if they are denying that they knew it, then why did they go ahead with a budget and tell the nation that we are so skint that we have no choice but to put up the taxes? Lines are open on that. 0344 499 1000. Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
23 minutes after 1 o'clock here on Talk. It's the home of common sense. Your party, not your party, your party, you know, them, your party. Jeremy Corbyn and his cohorts, Zara Sultana being the kind of co-founder, have kind of moved into open conflict territory. Sultana refused to enter the conference held in Liverpool at the weekend after several of her allies were removed, accusing Corbyn of leading a bit of a witch hunt despite his call for unity. Different members even took to the floor to highlight the issues that they had with the party. Have a listen to this fella.
Hi there, conference. My name is Erin from Glasgow. When this party started, it included 2 MPs who were openly transphobic, one of whom was a landlord. This party preaches unity and equality for its working class members.
I'm sorry, I need to stop you there for calling them transphobic from the rostrum. Can you please stick to the motion?
Two members who allegedly expressed transphobic views.
They've got a lot of time on their hands there, Dave. I think Harry Cole said it's like watching South Park. Watching this. It really is, isn't it? I mean, what if ever you wanted a kind of cliche opening to a conference of absolute lunatic lefties, then this is the one, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's a joy to watch in a way.
It really is a joy to watch.
I mean, it's your party and we'll fight if we want to. Jeremy Corbyn wanted to be the leader and they wouldn't allow him to be the leader.
Yeah.
So, of course, this is a party that took, how long? 3 months, 6 months to come up with a name for
Something
itself?
like that, yeah. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's still not fully settled.
No, it's a temporary name, your party,
temporary name,
until
yeah.
they come up with a name.
Yeah.
So they've got the name, but they haven't got a leader because they've decided to have a sort of Soviet-style Politburo, which is elected by the candidates. So there will be no out-and-out leader. I mean, Jeremy Corbyn really thought he was going to be the leader of this new party, and he's not. And so did. Well, it was Zara Sultana, who they're fighting like rats in a sack.
I mean,
as well.
the nonsense that, look, I'm the last person in the world, Dave, as you know, to defend Jeremy Corbyn, but I mean, he could, conceivably argue in a meeting among his fellow Marxists and lefties. He could say, look, at the last election, the one I fought as Prime Minister, I got more votes than Keir Starmer did, so maybe that puts me in quite a good position. There is still an appetite for a bit of Jeremy Corbyn. If you're a lefty, then he's your man. He would be the obvious choice, right?
Yeah, he would.
If I was a lefty, I'd be voting for Jeremy Corbyn.
Absolutely, yeah.
Not the Sultana woman.
No, absolutely. And it shows the level of splits within the left, the hard left. I mean, there's been expulsions. I mean, Zara Sultana has talked about witch hunts for people within the party already, and it's only just started. But I think they're talking about people who are members of the Socialist Workers' Party and so forth. Well, if
are they left enough, or are they too left?
Yeah, exactly. If you're an extreme left party, surely there's nobody who can conceivably be left-wing enough to be to be kicked out.
But if you're of that mindset, so if you're in the Your Party and you look at the socialist workers, you might as well be looking at reform as far as they're concerned, you know, because they're not real now. Who do they think they are? You know, one of them once made a joke about a bloke that had long hair or something like that. So he's transphobic. He shouldn't be allowed. I mean, it's a nonsense. But it goes to the root of a further problem, doesn't it, with kind of left-wing thinking of this nature. It will always end up like this, and always has done, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we even had it in the Labour Party. You know, in recent history, we had it where Neil Kinnock had to fight with the militant tendency to keep them out. Yeah. Michael Foot was the previous hard left leader who seized control of the Labour Party. And Tony Benn, after him, was trying to get control of the party. And then Jeremy Corbyn actually did. But they're always fighting, and it was only when they formed a united party, which was under Tony Blair, where they won, and he did manage to keep those left-wing factions on side, thinking they were better inside the tent, managed than outside, causing rifts and throwing hand grenades in.
You just threw something in there. I would say this to. I blew in the face. One of the best political speeches ever was Neil Kinnock giving that when the militant tendency were all walking out and he was standing there saying, a Labour Council, giving out redundancy notices in taxes. You know, it was all of that. It was a brilliant piece of political oratory.
Great speech. It was a great speech, and that probably took him to within a hair's breadth of winning that election. Yeah. But he just failed because of the Sheffield Rally.
Rally. So, if you haven't seen the Sheffield Rally, look up the Sheffield Rally. You're right! That one, wasn't it?
It was sort of hubris on steroids. He
so
and
bizarre.
Roy Hattersley, I think it was, holding their hands aloft as if they'd just won the Champions League. Yeah. And
do you remember they did an outside video, didn't they, of him arriving like by helicopter into a police entourage and motorcyclists there looking like the Prime Minister. Then he turned up and he got so carried away with it, he went kind of all sort of American on it, didn't he?
Yeah,
and looked like an absolute loon.
It was one of the biggest.
I reckon he dreams that every night since.
It must be the biggest regret of his career.
100%. Final one here. It's back to Rachel Reeves, who's eased benefit rules for teenagers with ADHD. This is something ministers didn't say out loud, but they've eased welfare rules so that 16 to 19-year-olds with illnesses or disabilities no longer need to meet the 12-hour education requirement for parents to receive it. A budget change costing 25 million quid a year. This comes as Reeves highlighted the current welfare system is broken. Let's have a listen to the Chancellor on that same point.
We're not going to leave the welfare system unchanged. Under the previous government, in the last 5 years of the Conservative government, spending on welfare increased by 1 percentage point of GDP, equivalent to £88 billion. The OBR, I think in their forecast, showed that as a share of GDP, welfare spending will be broadly flat, but the system's not working, it's broken. And so those sorts of changes are the right things to do.
They're the right things to do, Dave. I mean, when it's all budgets, you know, it's the day after and the week after when people start looking into the detail. Go, well, she didn't say that bit. I didn't hear her say that, but it's all written in there.
Yeah. I mean, Neil, this morning, the Prime Minister's making this speech in which he's going to say he's going to make it harder for people to claim benefits, particularly young people, to remove the incentives to claim benefits, in fact, which all seems a bit odd when she's just added £16 billion to the 5 days ago to the benefits bill and has ditched and the opportunity to reform the welfare budget was kicked out because of a rebellion by the backbench. They're now trying to do it, and then of course he sells it. He's doing this big sell today, and now we learn that apart from increasing benefits, they're going to make it easier to claim benefits for ADHD. So really, it's like the hokey cokey in out again.
And of course, you know, I've got a bit of experience with this area. It's a really tricky one, isn't it? Because ADHD and what constitutes ADHD, it's, you know, I think it's fair to say it's very much up in the air to define this and to get it absolutely right. And of course, if you have any kind of issue, illness, disability, whatever, of course it's worth looking at, but it's just, if you like, it's another area of this government that people are going to pick up on and say, there she goes again. Another 25 million quid goes down that avenue, another 25 million in that. Where else are these little areas that they've spent money on?
The whole the purpose of welfare reform is to work out where the borderlines are, where people can work who have an issue, but it doesn't prevent them from working with some kind of support. And the problem is there's so many claiming not only for issues like ADHD, but for mild anxiety and other mental health issues. And really the whole thing needs re-looking at.
The problem is, of course, there's a curious thing in all of this, is that I'm getting mild anxiety from Rachel Reeves. So what do I do? Is there a claim for that?
Well, we should all be on benefits.
Do you think they'll be open to that down there at the Dole office? I don't know. I might put out an application form.
Well, if you've listened to our briefings over the past month or so, in the lead up to the budget, we'd all be suffering from high anxiety, never mind mild anxiety.
I mean, I found myself in the garden last night howling at the moon, Dave. Surely that's not a good sign, is it? That doesn't put me in a great position.
I think we'll all be doing that before too long.
I think I've got a claim. Dave, always good to see you.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Dave Wooding with us here on the programme. Over to you on that question. I like your general kind of analysis. Our audience are always great at the kind of overview of where this government are at, the heady levels of ineptitude, the jaw-dropping decisions we're getting almost on an hourly basis, and that extraordinary revelation that Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer, we now know, weren't quite crystal clear with the public. Some would say it was an out-and-out lie. Should she resign as a result of that? 0344 499 1000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is...
It is Talk, 0344 499 1000. That is where you will find us. Lots to get through. We're talking about Rachel Reeves and where she's at in terms of can she hold it down. There's an ethics committee to have a little look at what she's been up to. And, of course, we'll get the results of that perhaps over the coming days. Meantime, that question, should she resign? I mean, many people are saying, this is a resigning matter. A couple of guests we're going to talk to on this in a moment. Susan Hall, Assembly Member for the Conservatives in the London Assembly. First, Warwick Lightfoot, economist, former Conservative government advisor. Warwick, good afternoon to you.
Afternoon, nice to see you.
And you too, nice to have you with us. I mean, let's start then with this issue around Rachel Reeves. She's claiming she didn't tell a lie to anybody and, never would do. Perished the thought and all the rest of it. Let's have a listen to her over the weekend insisting that she was truthful with what had happened. Here she is on Sky News.
I just asked you, did you lie? And I have to say, the answer I was looking for was no. And I didn't hear the word no.
But you also asked about welfare in that question.
No, I just asked you, did you lie?
Of course I didn't.
Good, OK. By the way, was the Prime Minister informed through all of this process?
Yes.
And he was right there with you on it all?
Yes, of course.
Decisions
we
you
are
made,
a partnership.
what you said on November the 4th?
Yes, we are a partnership.
So they're a partnership, and it is always those two offices of state, of course, Warwick, that are joined at the hip, as it were. What is your assessment of this? Is this a... Did she not read the room? Did she tell a lie? Or is this a lot of fuss about nothing?
Well, I think the key thing about does she resign or not, should she be there or not, it turns really, does she have the confidence of the Prime Minister? And secondly, do the Prime Minister and the Chancellor have the confidence of Parliament, which in practice means the Parliamentary Labour Party? And if she does, and if they have the confidence of the Labour Party, this is a political process and they carry on. The other thing I would say from the opposition's point of view, there's this very interesting thing. Do you want a damaged Chancellor who's somewhat awkward in their presentation, and that's putting it at its best, who has made mistakes and is associated with an agenda of tax rising? Do you want to put a preservation order on her, or do you want to remove them? Now, I remember when my old boss, Nigel Lawson, resigned, Mrs Thatcher said he was unassailable, by which she meant he had actually increased inflation, had a big problem to sort it out, and as she said rather unkindly, she thought he might stay there to do it and take the unpopularity. Now, sometimes it's better to have a Chancellor there who's your opponent, who's in trouble, rather than have them put down.
That's a very good point, and it means that the Conservatives, of course, can retain that narrative, and if she looks wounded and looks, you know, in the eyes of many, sort of almost beyond satire in terms of what is going on, then that is very good, as you rightly say, for the opposition. And I guess you mentioned confidence, Warwick. She will have the confidence of the Prime Minister. He's already said that. And, of course, I think now, given what we saw in that budget, that huge lift on money going into the welfare department, she's probably got the confidence of the backbenchers. So it's, in their respect, job done, right?
Well, the run-up to the budget was a very awkward and disappointing run, just as the run-up to last year's budget was an awkward and disappointing run, where every hair you could get going to upset a business, to upset an investor, upset a saver, upset a taxpayer, everything was chucked into the air and carried on. Now, that damaged confidence last year, and it's done. They played the same game again this year. Now, whether they were trying to do it or whether it happened by accident, it happened. So it was a very awkward budget statement to go into, whatever she was going to do. Having your whole budget be laughed at on the BBC in the 20 minutes before she delivered the speech must have been devastating. And I actually do admire the way she kept it together in that budget statement. It was a magnificent episode of political brio, which she pulled off the peculiar House of Commons theatrics, I think, with great success in that circumstance. The other thing I'll just say is that the most effective shadow chancellor I ever encountered was John Smith. When Nigel Lawson resigned, he was told by Newsnight, well, you've got what you want. The chancellor's gone. Mr Smith was very clever. He said, no, I haven't. He said, what do you mean? The chancellor's resigned. He said, I've never asked for the chancellor to resign. I've asked for a change of policy. And that will mean a change of government.
And that is clearly, as you rightly said at the beginning, if they retain the Chancellor, that allows them to keep up that narrative. A kind of clean sweep, a new figure could, be careful what you wish for, isn't it? That could almost reinvigorate Labour.
It would be an opportunity. Well, it would both reinvigorate the Prime Minister and also cage him in as well. Because remember, once you've got rid of one Chancellor, it's rather John Major, when Norman Lamont went, another one of my old bosses, when he went, he found it very difficult to actually spar and contain Ken Clarke when he was Chancellor. So to lose one Chancellor is one thing, to actually lose a second one becomes much more awkward.
Indeed. Warwick, on that point, thank you, sir. Great to speak with you. Warwick Lightfoot, economist, former Conservative government advisor who's worked for, as he just listed there, some of the I was about to say some of the greats. I guess that depends on where you sit politically. Let's have a reminder then of Keir Starmer speaking this morning on this issue of the fiscal shortfall. Who knew what and when? Mr Starmer cobbled together a press conference and told us this.
We had already made commitments, which I think I've expressed to you and many others many times over, that we were going to protect our public services, particularly NHS, to cut borrowing costs and to bear down on the cost of living. So we had, on the one hand, £16 billion less than we might otherwise have had. We had clear commitments that we'd made throughout the process as to what it was we were going to achieve. Therefore, against that backdrop, it was inevitable that we would always have to raise revenue. So there's no misleading there.
There's no misleading there. Susan Hall, Assembly Member for the Conservative Group in London. Good afternoon to you.
Hello, Ian.
I mean, in a way, I guess we didn't really need to ask you on today because Keir Starmer's just clarified it all. Nothing to see here. Everything's fine. So you can go and have a cup of tea now, Susan.
Oh, well, thank you. I shall do that when I've had a chat with you. But, I mean, nothing to see here. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
The thing that really gets me is I am a politician. And the one thing that all of this does is to devalue politicians more and more, because everybody is saying she's a liar. And the reason they're saying that is that she said that there was a big black hole. We all heard about it. And in truth, there wasn't. And that doesn't do politics any good whatsoever. So I understand what Warwick was saying before, you know, a wounded chancellor may be good for the opposition, but actually it's not good for anybody. And the only thing that we should do is look after the people in Britain. That is what we've all been elected to do. And at the moment, we just don't have any trust, particularly in what that woman says, because she said one thing and that was not the case. And the Prime Minister rowing in completely behind her on that is just proving that whatever people think of her, they'll think of him. It's not good for politics. It's not good for the way the country is run.
Well, indeed it isn't. And of course, that budget last week was massively political. You know, you could argue from a Labour, you know, if you're a Labour supporter, you say, well, it was a Labour budget. So you're very happy with the way it went and the additional money on welfare and other sort of associated areas. But this, of course, comes down to some very basic facts. And that is that she was told by the OBR that actually you've got some wiggle room here. You know, the books aren't quite as bad as you thought. We've had, you know, wage increases, and that has accounted for a different set of figures from what we first thought. So you can go into this budget with a little bit more headroom. And it was around about that time that they suddenly, having spent weeks, if you remember, Susan, of saying, or sort of alluding to the fact we might get tax rises, then suddenly, no, there was no tax rises. That was completely ruled out. And bit mysterious, but thank goodness it was ruled out. But of course, they happened in a very different way. And they still went ahead and raised shed loads of money through the freezing of thresholds and the like, because they wanted to raise money to spend on welfare. And this was money that the OBR said you didn't really need.
Yeah, but you see, you said right at the beginning of that, Labour supporters will be happy with this. That is assuming that Labour supporters don't know how the economy works. And I know lots of Labour people, and they do know. And they were quite pleased before the election to hear that they were going for growth, because anybody who understands the economy knows it's the way forward. It's the way to get everybody out of poverty or whatever else. And there is nothing that she did in her first budget. In fact, to put national insurance up on employers was the most ridiculous thing anybody has ever heard. And this budget, yes, it will affect a certain proportion of their voters, but their voters, I mean, they're supposed to be for the working people, which, by the way, Labour certainly aren't anymore. But people that are going out to work, working really hard to find out their taxes are going up to suit some people. Well, I'm telling you, I knock on doors. It's not going down at all well. Labour voters are not stupid. Actually, I think they'll vote with their feet now, because knocking on doors, people are so upset by this particular government. Well, but there's no question, both the Chancellor and this Prime Minister have got to go for the sake of the country.
Well, maybe Jeremy Corbyn and Sultana are I mean, after their weekend of absolute doom, I don't know where you go if you're a lefty anymore. Do you go in that direction or that direction? What do you do?
I think you have to sit and look at the finances and think, no, I should veer to the right.
Yeah.
And the Conservatives are there with open arms waiting for them.
There it is, Susan. Thank you. Susan Hall, Assembly Member for the Conservative Group in the London Assembly. Your comments on this. Should Rachel Reeves resign? Very simple question. What is the answer? Shirley is in the Cotswolds. What have you got for us, Shirley? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ian. I've been listening to the radio news and talk most of the morning while I'm busy with other stuff. And Rachel Reeves is lying through her teeth, and the reason she's got no option but to lie is because all of this bump about child poverty and welfare, and everyone's discussing, you know, the ins and outs of all of that. But the true reason why she can't tell us why she needed to raise our taxes is because the mountainous bills that the immigrants who are coming over in boats and being housed in all kinds of places, army barracks, houses and hotels. The bill is astronomical, and she can't tell us that that is why she's raising our taxes, because they have got to pay this money out, and they daren't tell us that. She's hardly going to tell us the true reason of why she's done it, and that has got to be part of it. And I just think no one that I've listened to today has acknowledged that. It's like the elephant in the room that no one dare talk about.
I think you're onto it, and that absolutely. If you think of the 5, 6, 7 million a day that this costs this country, how can that not have a tangible collective effect over the course of 1 year? It's the money a day. We're talking billions on this one. So that alone. And in fact, what you've raised there, and thank you, Shirley, for your call, what you've raised there is brilliant, because it just shows the pie chart of expenditure that this government, we can say it started under the last one, but they're not any longer the government. This government are now in charge of. They could do something about this and are deciding not to. But the issue with the OBR, when the OBR had told and informed the Chancellor privately, pre-budget, that the downgrade they had made had been more than offset by higher than expected tax revenues. So they were doing enough. There was enough in the pot not to have to raise taxes. So why did they raise taxes? Because they wanted that extra cash. Surely they're contending that some of that would have been for the huge migration bill. I'm sure that is true. But also that big increase in welfare spending, which really pleases the left-wing meerkats on the backbenches. That's all it was about. It was saving Keir Starmer's job, and therefore, by definition, Rachel Reeves's as well. Lines are open. 0344 499 1000. Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
One here says, hello everyone, just out of curiosity, as Starmer and Reeves and co have been found out to be wanton and absolute liars, if there is an ethics inquiry and a fiscal inquiry into the budget and the lies around it, would this not lead to all cases Starmer handled as a lawyer? And they're also investigated for lies into Getty, I don't know what that's meant to say. He may have told them before he became an MP. Well, I mean, you could, I suppose, if you wanted to be really mischievous, just go, well, this man is now known to have form. What about that case he tried in 2003? I don't know. But yeah, who knows? You could give it a go if you're a disgruntled person that was on the receiving end of Keir Starmer's legal back in the day. Louise is in Kent. On this question, Louise, what have you got for us? Good afternoon.
Well, I have to remember that, don't you remember that Boris was brought in front of the Parliamentary Standards Committee and actually found guilty of lying to Parliament over cake? And yet I don't believe that cake upset the markets and the bond market, etc., unlike this lot. So there's that. But although I think, yes, probably she should go, but the alternatives could be even worse, because we know that Ed Miliband is the most favoured amongst all the Labour voters.
True.
Who would go in as Chancellor? And there is occasion sometimes where actually it's better that they get reprimanded really hard but stay, because the more mistakes they make, the more likely they are, the lot of them, to go next time round.
Where do you... I mean, the trouble with politicians, Louise, as I'm sure you're aware, is they just have a brilliant knack of being able to tell, to be polite, an untruth. And then almost, I don't know whether they convince themselves of it, I'm not sure, but they manage to dig their heels in and it becomes completely immovable. So they never change. And if they keep saying it, it kind of stays there and everyone goes, well, there's not legally anything can be done about it, so we have to take their word for it, end of story.
Well, I think there is this thing about the more you say it, the more it eventually becomes the truth.
Yeah, I think so.
It just carries on. But also, thinking about that, I mean, I had heard the other day, the trouble is with Reform, they have got such a massive HR exercise to get themselves into place.
Yeah.
Ready for an election. And if it was tomorrow, well, if they called an election tomorrow, what does it take? 3 months? They wouldn't be ready. And these defectors from Conservatives, you see, are they defecting because they know they'd lose their seats, but if they're in Reform, they would get them back?
Yeah.
So I think there's all sorts of worries with this, generally, and I just don't know where we're going with it, really. I think it's really frightening, the situation we're in, because I don't think there's anything in place yet to take over if we had a general election in 3 months. That's my big worry of all.
That is absolutely the problem. You're spot on, Louise. Thank you very much indeed for that. Let's go to Gareth in Derbyshire on this question of Reeves. Can she survive this, Gareth? What do you think?
Well, good afternoon, by the way. The problem I've got with her is when she delivered this budget, well, she was saying they were all my choices. I think she said it about several things, didn't she? My choices.
Yep.
This is my choice. Now, suddenly, it's our choice, because she's a partnership. She's putting it in with Mr. Starmer, isn't she?
Mm-hmm.
So, but don't forget, this is a lady who has spent the last 18 months trashing the economy.
Yeah.
She said she was an economist, but the first thing you learn when you do economics A-level is that the thing that the economy needs is confidence. It needs people...
Every day of the week, right?
It needs talking up. You don't talk it down. You don't... She's trashed us totally. And then she's saying that we're going to have growth, but there's no way she's going to create any growth because people have lost confidence not only in them, but also the economy itself, because it puts people on the back burner. You know, people who could actually be spending money and doing normal things like going out to restaurants, going on holidays and, taking the kids out and stuff like that, they stop doing things. And that's what happens. It's like self-perpetuating. Yeah. And she's created that.
Can she survive, though, Gareth?
Well, the thing is, it's difficult because is there a mechanism for getting rid of her? Because, Keir Starmer is attached at the hip to her now because basically he's said, this is our choices. It's not my choice. It's not her choice. So if she goes, he's got to go. Now, Nigel Farage keeps saying there's going to be a fiscal event, I think. Is it like an eruption, a volcanic eruption or something? What he means is there's going to be a crash like we had in 2008. Now that makes people feel even worse about it, doesn't it?
Of course it does. Well, we'll watch this space. Gareth, thank you very much indeed, Gareth, in Derbyshire. Lots of comment coming in. Reference your party, the Corbyn party. Chrissy says, Christina says, Ian, I'm confused. Did you just show a video of the Raving Loony Party or the Your Party lot? Or has there been a coalition? We've not been told about. Well, it could be a coalition, couldn't it? It could be something in that as well. This one in from Chris in Brighton says, I'm a lefty of the old school. These new pronoun-obsessed wokey types are not left-wing. They're nothing more than posturing numpties. Can you imagine the likes of Bob Crow, Tony Benn or Arthur Scargill obsessing over pronouns while the country fell to pieces? Of course not. Modern politics, indeed modern culture, is a clown show. Yeah, I was reminded of that when I was reading a little earlier about the death of Brian Hayes. Now, some of you of a certain vintage will be familiar with Brian Hayes, but he was what you might call one of the originators of this genre, what I'm doing right now. He could do like very few others. And what marked him out, he was an Australian by birth, working on British talk formats. But he had an absolute fiery, tell it like it is tongue. And if you were on the receiving end of that, it didn't matter whether you were talking to Bob from Arbroath or Margaret Thatcher. This was no mercy at all. And he was absolutely brilliant at it. My mum thought he was the rudest man on the radio, and that was kind of the point. It was very different. He was absolutely one of the few genuine trailblazers of this genre. Died at 87, Brian Hayes. Let's get the news now at 2 o'clock here on Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
And good afternoon. Yeah, welcome back to the show. This is the home of common sense. So, at the weekend, more than 4,000 people marched in Crowborough to protest Home Office plans to house up to 540 male asylum seekers at a nearby military camp. Locals and the council have formally opposed the move. Is there anything they can do? Do voices matter in this kind of area? We'll look more at that story. As you'll be aware, we've been discussing Rachel Reeves facing renewed calls for her resignation over claims she misrepresented the state of public finances ahead of last week's budget. I mean, this is serious stuff. Politicians have a sort of an uncanny knack of hanging on in the face of all manner of adversity, and sometimes just basic fact. Did she tell a porky pie? Did she not reveal something that would have been better if she had have done? That's to be generous. Where does this story end, and should she now walk the plank? Our ministers have quietly eased welfare rules so that 16 to 19-year-olds with illnesses or disabilities are no longer required to meet the 12-hour education requirement for parents to receive benefits. We'll get more on that story. Again, it rather feeds into the ongoing discussion about stuff we didn't actually realise was in the budget. We'll have more on that story as well. Everything you need to know, all the breaking news right here on Talk. 0344 499 1000. Debbie in Eastbourne says, about 6 weeks before the budget, Keir Starmer sent advisers into the Treasury to work alongside Rachel Reeves. It caused a lot of fuss at the time, with comments about him not trusting her to get on with it right. What happened to these advisers? Did they advise? Were they also misled? Everything is so unclear and misleading. We as a country demand better, says Debbie in Eastbourne. Bang on, Debbie in Eastbourne. We do demand and should demand better. And there is a sort of sense, isn't there, regardless of what we're talking about, that I know perception can be an interesting beast. Perception can become reality. And of course, once a certain ball starts rolling, the ball of ineptitude of a government, it's hard to ever row it back. And areas of political life that you might have just thought, well, that's a blip, they'll get over it. You put it all together now through the prism of, I guess, social media, 24-hour news cycles, and everything looks pretty creaky at the moment. I think creaky is generous. And there's one such area that I think sort of feeds into that narrative of something you'd file in the under the title of "What the heck are they thinking?" This was David Lammy proposing to restrict jury trials, despite many saying that they're fundamental to our democracy. Let's have a listen to the Shadow Justice Secretary talking about Mr Lammy. Here's Robert Jenrick.
The Justice Secretary is plotting to discard centuries of jury trials without so much of a by your leave. And where is the Justice Secretary to answer for this? Do we need to send out a search party to Savile Row in case he's gone suit shopping again this morning? Jury trials are fundamental to the justice system. They're fundamental to our democracy, and we must protect them. Not my words. Those of the Justice Secretary himself. And this time, he was right. There is wisdom in 12 ordinary citizens pooling their collective experiences of the world. But now he's in government. He's doing the complete opposite. He blames the court backlog. But if the courtrooms standing empty this year were used, the backlog would be down by 5,000 to 10,000 cases.
Well, you might say, well, he would say that, wouldn't he? He's the opposition. Would something like this have come across the desk had the Tories been in power and won the last election? Let's get a word from Sir Michael Ellis Casey, barrister, former Attorney General. Michael, good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon, Ian.
Nice to have you with us. I mean, it's not the first time, we should say, I'm sure, within your profession. The whole jury question crops up from time to time, whether it's among colleagues or whether you're having a pint with somebody. It's always been there. But it's part of our history. It's widely seen by most people as being pretty darn effective. What is your take on what you've heard from our current government on this?
Look, the jury system, Ian, is absolutely fundamental, and it's crucial to the rights of the citizens of this country, and has been, frankly, for 800 years. And even going back as far as the Magna Carta, there was an insistence that jury trials took over from trial by ordeal, because there was an understanding that that's how you could best get fair justice. Now, there have been pressures on the criminal justice system for many years, but if you ask anyone who actually works in the Crown Court and who actually works with juries, they would tell you that juries are not what is causing the backlog, which is what David Lammy is claiming is the rationale for his irrational decision. It won't have any difference. It won't make a slight bit of difference to the backlog. All it's actually going to do is interfere with a fundamental human right of the people of this country that long predates ECHR and the Human Rights Act and all that modern stuff that actually we can dispense with, but this principle we can't.
There is a school of thought, and we spoke to one guest just last week, Michael, on this point, whose central argument was, look, relatively speaking, we send so few legal cases are tried in front of a jury. He claimed something like 1%, not sure if that is true, and also argued that, well, in fact, he thought it was preposterous that we allowed 12 ordinary people to mull over the minutiae of what is often a complex legal argument. He felt that was something we'd kind of developed a romantic link with rather than an intellectual one.
Look, I disagree with that, and I appeared to prosecute and defend cases for 17 years in front of Crown Court juries. And I think that they inject common sense into the decisions of the court. We really need that nowadays more than ever. A lot of people don't have the confidence in the police to make the prosecution decisions that they think should be being made. And a lot of people have lost confidence in the Crown Prosecution Service for the same reasons. So we now need juries more than ever to inject some common sense and say, well, frankly, it doesn't matter what the evidence is, if you like. It doesn't matter what has happened here up to this point. We are going to decide guilt or not guilty. And that is really a fundamental injection of common sense from jurors. Look, the other thing about it, Ian, is quite simply this. What is actually causing the backlog is things like an underinvestment in the criminal justice system. You haven't got a lot of courtrooms working because they're in dilapidated court buildings. There's no plumbing, there's no heating, there's no electricity. So they've got courtrooms empty. You've also got a few sitting days that are not allocated to judges. So you can't run a court because the judges aren't being paid to run the court on that day. And you've also got an increase in the complexity of evidence. So nowadays you've got all this mobile telephone data, you've got more CCTV footage than ever before. So on your common or garden burglary, for example, there might be every camera in the street, many houses in the street might have had home CCTV footage, all of which has got to be trawled through. The defence and the prosecution are entitled to it. In other words, there's far more data, digital data, than ever before.
Absolutely.
So that's what's causing the delays. Messing about with jury trials, Ian, won't make any difference at all.
One of the other things he noted, it was Sir Simon Jenkins, the writer and the journalist we were speaking to on this. OK, he's not a lawyer, but his other contention was that actually, when I said to him, look, you speak to most barristers, most KCs, most solicitors, everyone's in agreement, prosecutors or defenders, that this is not a good way to move forward. He argued, not kindly, I should add, that actually the reason you guys like it is because you're nothing more you like more than sticking on a wig and hearing the sound of a gavel of a day. It gets you out of bed, and it's a performative thing where you can think, wow, half an hour I was in law school and here I am, lauding it up in front of 12 people. I'm the star of the show. Any truth in that, the vainglorious nature of barristers?
No, I don't think so. I mean, look, to be honest, barristers became barristers in most cases because they like the advocacy, as opposed to solicitors who would do perhaps less advocacy than a barrister, although solicitors do advocacy as well nowadays in courts, especially in the magistrates' court. So, look, I think there is a bit of the theatre of it, but this is a very serious issue. The Free Speech Union have said, here we are, where the Americans, for example, the Trump administration is very concerned about the direction of this country when it comes to free speech, and we've seen prosecutions along those lines. And now we have another fundamental infringement on a principal right, which is a right to a trial by jury. But, the other thing is, Ian, we will get far more convictions if you have judges sitting alone without juries. Magistrates tend to convict far more than juries. Juries tend to give people the benefit of the doubt. They tend to say to themselves in the privacy of the jury room, well, maybe, but we're going to cut this person a break or something along those lines. Or they will be more sceptical about the prosecution evidence, and they will therefore give somebody the benefit of the doubt. You'll therefore get more convictions without juries, and you're going to put even more pressure on the prison estate, which the government is also underinvesting in. So this policy is an absolute car crash.
Yeah.
And it really is another mastermind decision, from David Lammy.
Indeed, and as you rightly say, it doesn't actually make sense. You don't even need to be a lawyer to work out that this would not be the area that would reduce the huge list that's sitting there in magistrates' courts and Crown courts. While you're with us, Michael, I'd like to get a word, if we can, on that what became a very controversial story. It should never have been. This was the banning of the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans at Villa Park at the beginning of what is now last month, 6th of November. Israel coming out saying this was anti-Semitic. There's still a lot of arguments about this. What are you making on these latest developments?
Well, I'm very concerned about West Midlands Police and the decision here, and I think the Prime Minister has said that he's concerned. This has been something that actually is a rare thing that both Keir Starmer and Kemi Badenoch have expressed concern about. The Israeli government have said that over the weekend, a very strong statement they've issued. I believe that a senior police officer from West Midlands Police is due to give evidence before the House of Commons this afternoon. People will be watching that very closely. I think, Ian, this is a big issue, a big problem here. And there's a lot of concern in legal circles particularly, but elsewhere too, about this decision. Was the information that West Midlands Police had, was it bogus? And if the information was bogus, then who gave them that information? Yeah. And if that did happen, and it's an if, but if it did happen, why did the police fall for it? So these are the sort of questions that have to be asked. And I'm glad the Home Affairs Committee in Parliament this afternoon is going to be looking into it.
Yeah, let's hope so. Michael, thank you for your time, sir. Really appreciate that. Sir Michael Ellis, KC, barrister. He's also the former Attorney General, very senior in that legal world. You heard two views there. One was on the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans story, which kind of darkens by the day, it seems. But more before that, more on the issue of David Lammy and this jury trial thing. I mean, the smart money says it's not going to see the light of day, this. It's not, this is never going to happen, right? Never going to happen. So why are we, why are we still debating it? Because Lammy will know there's just the arguments against it are absolutely vast. What it does do, it feeds into what I was saying before I spoke to our last guest, this sort of sense of a government that's completely and utterly out of control. I had this message from Kaz, who says, in the long career of presenting political journalism, would you say the last 14 months have been more interesting than the last 14 years of the Conservatives under various leaderships? Yeah, I think it has actually, Kaz, and I think it has for a whole load of reasons. And look, I know we sit here as people. When I say people, I'm talking about us here at Talk, people who listen and like this kind of very open, common sense approach to journalism and speech and the kind of things we talk about. We're not the BBC. Yes, there are rules and regulations in place about, what you can say. You can't libel somebody, you can't swear. But beyond that, we can take more open debate than anywhere else. So I'm preaching to the converted a little bit by saying this with our audience. That's broadly the point. But I think even putting that aside, the last 14 months have been just extraordinary. And one of the main reasons, and what I think has been exposed and was exposed quite early on, is that Keir Starmer does not have a political ideology. There's no kind of underpinning root and branch political roadmap that sits underneath everything he's doing. Because if you can see one of those, even if you disagree with it, you can go, Jeremy Corbyn, I can understand Jeremy Corbyn. He wants to raise taxes here, he wants to do X, Y, Z, penalise the rich even. I get that, all right? I don't agree with it, but I understand where he's going. I think we all understood what Thatcherism was. We understood what Blairism was, all to begin with. I have no idea what Keir Starmer is all about, or his government, and the people within it, bearing in mind there's very little experience in the world of business or the outside world, seem absolutely clueless, and they look and sound absolutely clueless on a very regular basis. So I think that, to me, informs the rather disjointed, chaotic nature of the bozos we've got running our country. I think that's fair. There's impartiality for you. Charlie is in East Sussex. Charlie, how are you doing?
Hi, Ian. I'm talking to you far too much these days.
It's all right.
Well, no, I enjoy it, but it's the narrative and how it looks to me as a normal bloke in the street. Keir Starmer's doubled down on the budget, hasn't he? He's doubled down on it. He supported it. And for me, it looks like he's trying to say to us, well, what did you expect? We've laid out all of these plans. This is what we want to do. Why? What did you expect? Did you expect that we weren't going to come back for more money at some time because we need to pay for all this A, B, C, X, Y, Z? Yeah. And I think what they've really done is they're talking to people in such a way, and I'm not talking about the legal connotations of whether what they've said was right or wrong or correct or whatever, or incorrect. What I'm talking about is the way they're actually communicating with the public as if to say, well, look, you voted for this, and this is what I feel that their narrative's going to be. This is what you voted for. You voted for us to take the ball by the horns and do A, B, C, X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
You're naive to think that this would not cost you, even though perhaps we did say previously, which they did, we wouldn't come back for X amount of tax. Yeah. What they're basically saying is, why would you think that we wouldn't come back? And he's doubling down on it. And I just get this feeling, really, that the entire country, by these two mainly people, but there are other people behind the scenes. We're like wearing a Parker coat from the 1970s. We've got the snorkel. We've got
great
the snorkel.
coat.
Yeah, well, fantastic coat. But we've got the snorkel up, and we're looking at it, and as if to say, well, look, they don't want us to look either side of what we can see out of that little hole in the Parker, and. It's, to me, I just can't put my finger on it, but there's stuff going on behind the scenes that we don't really know about, and what is worrying is I don't think they actually know about.
Are we fed up with politicians? And because the other thing we have now, we have other voices that never existed. They exist online, and some of them exist online with very significant followers, and America, of course, more so. But even over here, there are growing groups of people that set up not necessarily their own party, Charlie, but, their own programmes and thought groups and things like that. So it kind of creates, and often it's more opinion than anything. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with it. I think it's fantastic. People have formats and forums they can do this on. It's not necessarily news. It does sort of masquerade as news, but it's opinion-led, and that's great. But it means that every manoeuvre that a politician does is then dissected, analysed. There's an autopsy. There's an archaeological dig into every word, and there's a spin put on it if you hate them, there's a spin put on it if you love them. And it's very hard now. We've got this kind of mess. Every subject is scrutinised by 1,000 voices, whereas before, half a dozen people told you a story and you decided for yourself.
Yeah, well, I'm all for that, and I love to hear everybody's opinion. Yeah. And I like to, I like to hear both sides of the story, if you like. What I think really is happening now is what didn't happen in the past, is that the normal person in the street can now dive down into things, and where you couldn't previously. You can dive, you're saying, well, actually, is that really correct? Is it? Yeah. And so we are now questioning more and more and more of what our politicians are doing and saying. But I think the problem that we've got in the UK now is that as a general public, we are being run by people that, yes, perhaps haven't got the experience to run a country correctly because they haven't had business experience. They're these guys that have been in a cocoon, and they've been in it for such a long time that they can't see what's on the outside of the cocoon. Unfortunately, they're all blasted caterpillars. We're not getting any butterflies, are we? And that's the problem with it all.
We need, I hear you. Charlie, I've got to step in for time, but thank you. We need some butterflies. Papillon is required. Charlie, thank you, in East Sussex. Don't know where that came from. 23 minutes after 2. This is Talk. Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This from Gary, who says, I think Reeves is incompetent and a liar, so by rights I think she should go. But I do want her to go, well... but do I want her to go? Well, the answer is no, because we're 3.5 years out from a general election. If it all changes at the top of the Labour Party, then what could follow terrifies me. Can you just imagine what the state of our country would be by 2029 with the loony left in charge and Chancellor John McDonnell in number 11? Careful what you wish for. And that is rather the essence of it, isn't it? Who would you replace Rachel Reeves with? I mean, when you look at that front, but Darren Jones will probably get the job. He's a slightly saner voice on the outside, but I think inside there lies a sizzling lefty of epic proportions. And there's the danger. Dan is in Warrington. Back on the issue of jury trials. Dan, what do you think? Good afternoon.
Hi, Ian. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Fire away.
Yeah, so was it Sir Ian Jenkins that you had on?
Sir Michael Ellis.
Jenkins that suggested...
Oh, Simon Jenkins, yeah, last week, yes.
Jenkins. Yeah, that suggested that jurors were incapable of making these decisions.
Correct.
You know, and he compared it somehow to, a surgeon doing surgery. And
that's right, he did, didn't he? Yeah, you wouldn't ask a punter how to carry out a larynx operation.
Yeah, we was almost shouting at the radio when I heard that, because... I mean, the point that he's missing actually is the jury sometimes are there to hold the judiciary to account, you know, and so how many times do we hear that the specialists and the experts have let a paedophile walk free? How many, the baby Peter Connolly case, where and I know that wasn't a judge, but it was the experts that just refused to look at the evidence involved. Every day, even at government level, right, with Rachel Reeves or whatever, these people are in charge that are supposed to be the experts in their fields. Yeah, are making monumental efforts every day, aren't they? And so, no, I think the idea that juries are incapable is a load of nonsense, because if we just relied on judges all the time, we'd be having paedophiles walking free left, right and centre, wouldn't we? I
mean, that's the problem, isn't it? I suppose the only way you could answer this in the purest sense in this respect, Dan, is you might get... you can get a really top-notch judge who's just brilliant at this stuff, who you could go, do you know what, I want her or him to be in charge of everything, because they're so good, they know their way around it, they're completely impartial, they're brilliant. But you wouldn't know, but then you could get others that are, slightly more to the right or slightly more to the left, and you have all of those issues as well. We would never know who you're going to get, whereas at least with 12 people, you get a mixture, right? You get a point of debate, you get a discussion. It could go on for days or weeks until they reach an agreed verdict, etc. That, to me in itself, just on that basis alone, suggests that is superior to one person doing it, even if that person is a senior judge.
Yeah, I think so. You get to have an argument about it, right? And
every day of the week.
If you're unable to come up with a decision, then they get kicked out and you get a fresh jury. And now I know it might not be a perfect system, but
it's the best of what's there, right?
These experts make mistakes and strange decisions all the bloody time, and it annoys us all, doesn't it? Let's be honest. We're all every day. I mean, your show every day annoys people because of these things that you'd uncover, and the same as Julie Hartley-Brewer, she uncovers this, that, and the other. So no, if it was left just purely to the experts, people would be going mad, wouldn't they? And so I think that a jury is essential, especially if somebody requires it.
Yeah, spot on. Dan, great call. Thank you very much indeed. Dan's in Warrington. Chris is in Hereford. Chris, what have you got for us? Good afternoon. Back on Rachel Reeves. Should she go? Will she go?
Well, yeah, sure. I reckon she should go, but I think she won't go. You know what I mean?
I think so.
Because I think if she goes, I think Keir Starmer's premiership could be very seriously under threat. And and as you said earlier, if she goes, who's going to replace her? Because looking at that front bench, I don't recommend any of them, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I think it could. I know she's done a lot of things, like saying that she's got the black hole, where there was no black hole, sort of thing. But at the end of the day, there is nobody out there to replace her, and that's
the trouble. And politicians, no matter whether they're left or right, I know the left play the game of we're morally superior to those on the right. We're not just right, we're morally right. That seems to be their way of doing things. But it wouldn't stop them telling a lie. And of course, if you want to look at this as a lie, which many people are suggesting demonstrably is, they're quite relaxed about that because they think it's a lie for the greater morality, if you like.
Yeah. And I think, as I said, it's just the amount of decisions she's made is catastrophic. But as I said, if she goes, he goes, and then who's going to take over? Who's going to run?
Well, yeah, what happens then? And then you go back to the point that was just made by Gary, that, you know, you could end up with this kind of ultra-leftist, you're back sort of in the Corbyn department again. And, you know, who would want to see that? Chris, thank you. Chris in Hereford. 0344 499 1000. You can leave a voice note there as well if you want. Or you can message us 87222. Our lines are open. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk. 0344 499 1000. There's a lot of comment coming through on who would replace Cliff says. It's all very well for Starmer and Reeves out, but who will replace them? And would there be any better or much worse? When you think, you know, we've got the May elections, which are, was it like, you know, 30 weeks away or something crazy like that, closer than you think, of which annihilation is all but guaranteed in the areas where there's voting, which are significant areas, entire chunks of the UK, like all of Wales, all of Scotland, mayoral votes as well, local council ones. And if it goes the way that all the polling suggests, I don't know how a party could legitimately continue to... If it is the absolute wipeout, the mother of all wipeouts, I don't know how a party could continue to do that. I genuinely can't imagine with what brief or directive or remit they would sense they had if they'd been given that much of a kick-in. Notwithstanding the fact that, you know, midterms and stuff do tend to throw up results that are unfavourable to the party in power, but this could be in a different territory altogether. Now, around 4,000 people have marched in Crowborough against the Home Office plans to house up to 540 male asylum seekers at a nearby military camp. Locals say the town is too small to cope, and the local district council, Wealden, has formally opposed the proposal. The Home Office has delayed the move but insists large military sites are essential to its migration plans. Let's speak to a man who knows about migration plans. Kevin Foster is a former immigration minister. Of course, Kevin, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, well, you know better than most what it's like in government. You can make a decision on one thing, whether it's about this or anything else. And there's a whole group of people to go, hey, that's a fantastic solution. There's another group over there say, that's a terrible solution. But on this particular issue, I think this gets us close to the kind of wire of kind of confusion as anything, really. Putting 500, 600 unidentified young men into a small town, by anybody's reckoning, is going to be controversial, regardless of where you put them.
Absolutely. Look, none of these types of centres are ever going to be welcomed. Although, interestingly, during my time as immigration minister, we rejected pursuing the Crowborough site, partly due to the reasons now being cited by many of those objecting. It's actually, in terms of the type of model we wanted to bring in, like the Greek-style accommodation centres, where you're talking a couple of thousand people being accommodated. We more looked at big air bases. For example, people might remember the plans for places like Linton-on-Ouse or Scampton, where you could have not only potentially those, you know, it just been accommodated, but potentially even people being detained. And with an old air base, if the runway's still there, you've even got some options around looking at direct removals from them. Whereas Crowborough Barracks, I can remember visiting it, thinking it wasn't particularly suitable. And also the use of it by cadets meant that if you moved asylum seekers in, or actually if you moved any large group of single adult men in, you couldn't really continue those uses.
I mean, in terms of what the government are supposed to do on this, because I'm pretty sure, and you know what it's like in the Home Office, there's never a dull day over there, right? And there's, you know, all the file-marked immigration, when that comes hurtling down the corridor, everyone runs for cover because they know that whatever is going to be inside it is not going to be easy to solve. And I get that and I understand it. And when I speak to people like yourself, Kevin, those currently in government, former head civil servants. I remember talking to the permanent secretary in that department who, you know, brilliantly articulated this kind of organised chaos that just exists. I understand that to a degree. Obviously, you're running a big department. It's not meant to be easy. But something like this hasn't gone away for years. And as far as I can see, whether it was your lot or this lot, nobody seems to be able to get even close to solving the problem. And that is, we've got hundreds of thousands of mostly young men who've come into this country illegally over the last few years, and there's nothing we can do about it?
Well, there are things that can be done, and actually it's worth noting that numbers were actually falling near the end of the Conservative government. Come 4th of July last year, in came a new government with basically a slogan, smash the gangs, but not really a strategy for actually dealing with this issue. So the numbers have been going up, and really it's only the weather over the last couple of weeks that have not seen them smash through the 40,000 mark. I suspect when the weather breaks, we will see another surge in arrivals via the channel. Are there options? Well, yes, there are. And you've got to look internationally at other countries that have dealt with this. Australia and Greece were the ones commonly cited over the last couple of years. Now you can probably add to that the US southern border, where you've seen governments implement comprehensive strategies. You know, there's no one quick fix to this. There's no one natty little slogan or gimmick. And, you know, I remember saying to Mr. Sunak's team that just saying stop the boats was not going to stop the boats. You needed to have a broad strategy tackling the reasons for coming here, processing people once they're here, the legal barriers then to their removal, and answering the question of where are you actually going to send people that you don't want in this country. That's where, for example, Rwanda came in, because there's some countries we can't realistically return to, or where their governments just say a point blank no, and where our levers are quite limited. You know, people think, how many people take holiday to here from Eritrea, or how much trade do we do with Eritrea? So that's where you need to have something like Rwanda, a third country option. The model's there. And I think what we're starting to see is even Labour moving towards some of those more radical approaches. The rhetoric we've heard recently from Shabana Mahmood says there are some in the Home Office team really starting to get that that's what they need to do, not just come up with a new slogan.
What was the specific reason, Kevin, that the Australian model, and I know it's not a complete equivalence and there's a few factors that would highlight that, but why did we not go down that route? We had Alexander Downer on the programme a little while ago. Of course, he was the, I think, Foreign Secretary at the time in the Australian government when all of this was happening. And he explained it, and it sounds a very simple system. You can see why it pretty much put a complete stop to illegal immigration in Australia. Why don't we just say, see what they've done over there, let's do that over here?
Well, it's certainly something. I think if you probably have my former colleague Tom Pursglove on, we'd have both said that's what we want to do. A lot of times, those in the Home Office, you're now actually seeing it with Labour, and you perhaps saw it as well with people like Robert Jenrick, that once you actually get into this sort of issue and you see what's going on, you see some of the threats to our country being allowed to stay by some rather weird judgments based on the ECHR. You see some of the almost systemic lying that goes on. You know, people who apparently didn't need to claim asylum in France or Belgium, but now desperately need to do so here. You start to see that actually there's a system being gamed. You know, it's laws that were drawn up in the aftermath of World War II, you know, in a different era, in fear of what the Nazis had done, now being systemically gamed day in, day out by people who are fundamentally economic migrants who would like to come here, but can't qualify for our legal migration system. So when I say we didn't get support from everyone, and I've said before, Mr. Sunak came in with a slogan, sadly didn't come in with too much of a strategy on top of what Boris Johnson had been planning to do. But I think the mood has shifted, and, you know, our opponents at the time were criticising us for being too harsh with things like military bases. Now they're pushing them ahead themselves.
Yeah, I don't think that's lost on anyone now. It's extraordinary, isn't it? The amount of squealing that went on the left back, the Labour Party backbenches, whenever anything like this was raised, was extraordinary, and here they are implementing the same policies, Kevin.
Yeah, I can remember all the questions about conditions at Napier Barracks, and I used to say to my shadow, it's amazing how many questions I now get from the Labour Party about conditions at Napier Barracks, given they're being used by illegal migrants, comparing that to the complete absence of them when they were being used by British troops. And my view was, you know, single men aged between 18 and 40 were perfectly able to be accommodated in accommodation that British troops, mostly single men, aged between 18 and 40, had been able to use quite comfortably.
Yeah, you'd think so. Kevin, thank you very much indeed for your time. Kevin Foster, he's a former immigration minister under the Conservatives. His experience of that. It's funny, isn't it, when ministers are sort of out of office and you hear what they think, well, why did that level of determination not exist at the time? He did highlight the ECHR and issues around, I guess, by definition, some senior civil servants who will always go for the path of least resistance. They don't want to mess anything up. It's so much easier just to retain the status quo. Drop in a good, healthy dose of groupthink and you can see the problem. Some breaking news on that OBR leak last week. Remember, before Rachel Reeves stood up to give the budget, we'd already been given the budget, thanks to the Office of Budget Responsibility, who were able to tell us this because they published it online. A report into this has just come out. They've revealed that the leak was not a result of hostile cyber activity. They published its review on that leak from last Wednesday. It confirms the absence of any hostile cyber activity, any malfeasance from within the OBR. However, it went on, the ultimate responsibility for the circumstances in which this vulnerability occurred and was then exposed rests over the years with the leadership of the OBR. The inquiry was launched after the OBR published their forecasts and consequently most of the major budget policies around 40 minutes before Rachel Reeves had even stood up at the dispatch box. The worst failure in its 15-year history of the OBR, and that's the words of the OBR. The fact that they've talked about here that the responsibility rests with the leadership of the OBR probably tells you that by 6 o'clock this afternoon, a head honcho of the OBR will be walking the plank. I don't see, based on that statement, how that could be any different. I don't know whether somebody hit the send button or the publish button, accidentally couldn't get it back, all hell broke loose, headless chickens running around, blaming, pointing, shouting and swearing. Oh, the effing and jeffing over there, that hour before the budget must have been spectacular. You would pay to watch it. Forget WWE, this would have been in a different territory. But happened, it did. There's no going back. And according to their own release here, the review, the ultimate responsibility for the circumstances in which this vulnerability occurred and was then exposed rests over the years with the leadership of the OBR. There's no way you can publish that and somebody from the leadership not quit. End of. Watch this space. Back to your calls. John in Newcastle. What have you got for us, John? Good afternoon.
Hello.
Hi.
A little while ago, I was looking at some paperwork, and it said in the 1960s, this small island of ours, and it is when you look at the world map, this small island of ours had 30 million people on it. But nowadays,
we can say double that to 60 million. In fact, we can go a little bit further and say we now have roughly the same figures as France, 68 million people on this small island. And it's unbelievable. I've got no time for Conservative, Labour or Liberal anymore, because this has been for a good while, because I don't trust them. It goes from one to another, with the Liberals in the middle. The Liberals have never been in power themselves since when? The end of the First World War, roughly, David Lloyd George. And so therefore, but you get back to today and you say, what's going to happen here? We're going to be taxed even more. We've got more people coming in and claiming benefits all the time. Is that why we're being taxed as well? Thousands of people have just left this country and took their money with them, and it just makes you wonder where we're going. I've never blamed the French, because I go to France on holiday, and I realised a few years ago we were going through Calais, and some people who were Calais people were getting beat up by the immigrants. They were having their houses ransacked by the immigrants. This isn't Calais, and if it wasn't for the what we have here, you see, we give everybody 3 square meals a day, a lovely hotel to sit in. We give them money. We give them 3 meals a day. The French don't. I think there's holding centres in France where they can go, but there again they're left adrift, because a few years ago when they had the games on, they were clearing. People didn't know this, but I knew it because I know a Parisian, and he said he was living on the outskirts of Paris. He said they were clearing all the immigrants out of the centres of Paris to the outskirts of Paris. That's what they were doing. That's why you didn't see any. And the fact is that why should we as a small island have to endure this? Our taxpayers, well, me included and you, we're having to pay for these people coming here. And I'm led to believe in Hungary they have a different setup. They even pay the European Union money to not send them any immigrants in. There's a lump sum that's given to the European Union. I don't know when it is. It's every day, every week.
So there's something of that nature. They've certainly bought themselves, if nothing else, some time on this. You're right, John. Thank you for that, John in Newcastle. I'll tell you what we don't get, and I'm just going to come back to what I seem to say on every single show, and that is that, and again, you don't have to be a Trump fan, of which I'm not. I don't think any sane person is a Trump fan. We shouldn't look at politicians of any stripe in that kind of respect. I know people do. It just happens. But the approach, the oratory around certain things, whilst he's sometimes unconventional, he's sometimes completely rude, unnecessarily so. I know it's sometimes entertaining to watch. See Zelensky in the Oval Office for details. And those comments and jibes he makes to journalists, etc. It's unconventional, I get that. But you do want somebody to talk straight. There were a murder and an attempted murder on the streets of Washington last week. And the way that Trump responded to that was just brilliant. It was just brilliant. He said, we don't want people like this in the country. We put a stop to it. Now, he got it slightly wrong, because the person that is alleged to have carried out these atrocities was somebody who was vetted and I think had served in the American military. But his overarching point of sort of speaking with passion rather than just a press release, I mean, man alive, can we have a bit of that? I want Starmer to be outraged by this. Over 60,000 people since he's been in Downing Street have floated across the English Channel. That's a massive story. Be outraged, man. Have some. Get a furnace in the pit of your belly and yell from the rooftops that you're as mad as hell and you're not going to take it anymore. But we don't get that. We get, I've had a meeting with the Home Secretary and we have decided. Shut up. Get in the bin. Just come out and say it. Speak with some passion. Have some spunk in there, Keir, and all the others that follow you around as well. 0344 499 1000. That's what's missing from our system. Back with more from you coming next on Talk. Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Before we go any further, we're going to talk to Matthew in just a second. Voice of Doom, Day 13. Day 13. No one's got this beast. It's just a mystery voice thing, right? We're not reinventing the wheel here. Just a little bit of a breather in between a lot of debate and discussion. Mystery voice, it's political, so you're looking for a politician, past or present, dead or alive, left wing, right wing, male, female, whatever. OK, very simple question. Who is this?
Rightly and properly.
If you think you know who that is, 87222, here it is again.
Rightly and properly.
And we only reveal the answer if somebody gets it correct. First person through, we announce it. There are no prizes. Don't expect a car or money because there's nothing at this end. But you do get the kudos of winning the Voice of Doom. Here it is again.
Rightly and properly.
87222. It's not Norman St John Stevens, which is one of the big guesses every single day. Thoughts on that? Lines are open. We'll reveal all after the headlines. Matthew in Cheshire, what have you got for us, Matthew? Afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good to speak to you again.
You too.
Right.
Fire away.
You hear the ministers upset that Rachel and Abacus have lied to him, and you think they're going to raise. They're going to. I thought you'd get a vote of no confidence in these two muppets that are running our country, and it's. But my local MP, which is Warrington North, she was all over social media this weekend, blowing smoke all over Rachel, all over Keir Starmer, saying it's the best thing ever, and it makes you feel so far.
Wow. She was doing this about the budget.
Yeah, she stood there and she'd done a big thing on Facebook. It was in the Warrington site. It was. I don't follow her. I wouldn't follow her into anywhere. But she's saying how great the budget is. What a marvellous thing. And I'm thinking. These MPs, she's not even from Warrington. She doesn't. These MPs are all placed strategically placed.
Yeah. There's one or two are from that your own neck of the woods, but you're right, quite rare.
And she's saying it's great. And have you actually heard anyone apart from some Labour councillor who comes on your? I think Sebastian was loving it today. But
yeah.
No one has said anything positive about this budget. There's nothing. You know, you're saving on train fares. Have you seen the price of a train?
I know, you're saving on train fares. They already cost you an arm and a leg. I went to pick up a little boy after work on Friday, and I had to go to one of the other mums' houses, and she was looking after about 5 kids, and there was another mum there, and we got into this discussion. These are not political. They don't do politics for a living. They're just hard-working people who were absolutely outraged about this, Matthew. Just, that's the kind of pitch that's out there at the moment. There's real anger on this.
May can't come quick enough because I really think.
Oh, I wish it was tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. They're so far removed from what us working, as he says it, working. How much did he? Oh, that voice! I'm doing this for the working people. Oh, please go and jump off a cliff, Starmer, will you? And take Rachel from an abacus from an accounts with you. And all the other loony balls on the front, on that bench, we just go.
Yeah,
just get on a boat and go to France, and we'll do one in, one out. We'll do the Labour Party out and bring Farage and Reform in. I'll happy go with that. That'd be the best thing that could possibly happen.
Love it, Matthew. Thank you very much indeed for that. We can still get a word in from Nikki in Hampshire. We've not got long, Nikki, but I'm sure you can do it. Good afternoon.
Hi, Ian. Thank you very much. No, I'm just really furious because they talk about, uplifting children from poverty. We care about the children, whereas when they first got into government, we can't afford to do this. We can't afford to get rid of the two-child cap. Then he suspended 4 of his MPs who wanted to revolt against that. And then if they really cared about the children, what are they doing about the grooming gang girls and some boys? They've done absolutely nothing. It's all a lie. It's about saving their skins. They do not care about the country. They do not care about the citizens. They've sold their souls basically to the Chinese, Islamic, Arabic people who've all got their tentacles across this country. Basically, they do not care, and they've got money. They can just leave when all of this country goes down the drain. They don't care about children. It makes me so angry that they're using this as saving children from poverty. It's a load of...
Yeah, and it really won't save kids from poverty. It will just artificially move them across a sort of man-made constructed line, which doesn't really define getting out of poverty. It just means that you're in a different slight statistical criteria. Thank you, Nikki, for that. Love the anger. More to come in the next hour, including the voice of doom. Who is this?
Rightly and properly.
87222 if you think you know. We're going to take a brief pause for the news headlines. Back after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yeah, welcome back. Coming up on 3 minutes after 3 o'clock. Loads to get through here. Kids under 18 have appeared over 1,600 times on Police Live facial recognition watch lists across 6 forces. Now, this naturally raises concerns about accuracy and civil liberties. I never, with these things, I never want to go, well, I'm afraid we can't uninvent it. And it's in that sort of next phase of CCTV. It's like asking you to get rid of your your doorbell has now got a camera on it. Hundreds of thousands, probably millions of people up and down the country have got those things. Would you get rid of it? You go, no, not really. It's quite useful, actually. Quite like it. Deliveries and stuff. And I know who's at the door when they say they've called and they haven't, clearly. Had that yesterday with a parcel. So, yes, can we do anything about this? But if we've got kids under 18 appearing on live facial recognition, should we be worried? Tough talking Norman Brennan joins us a little later on that. As you've been hearing, the Free Speech Union warns that proposed changes to jury trials could make it harder for defendants to successfully use free speech as a defence. I think that's a fairly good point, especially considering what we've seen in recent years. And in international news, Labour MP Tulip Siddique has been sentenced in absentia in Bangladesh to 2 years in jail over alleged land corruption. This is a horrendous look for a Labour MP. The UK has no extradition treaty with Bangladesh, making it unlikely she will serve any time. I didn't realise we didn't have an extradition treaty with Bangladesh. Given the huge Bangladeshi community we've got in this country, you might have think we'd attended to that by now. 0344 499 1000 is where you will find us. Thank you to Brad in Cambridge for your kind comments, Brad. Yes, sometimes a bit of fire in your belly does appear when you least expect it. Ian in Hemel Hempstead says, they should be called the Teenage House Party. Talking about the government. Back in the day when my mates and I had adolescent parties, our parents would stand on the door and not allow entry to our invited guests that they thought looked like wrong-uns. I think this has happened to the Corbyn Sultana event. Yeah, it has. They've decreed, oh, you have a different view on gender than me, so therefore you're a transphobe. Which means you're scared of trans... You're not scared. You're just not going to buy into some kind of anti-science mumbo-jumbo. But you still want to respect people and their rights to say and be who they want to be. But no, just go for the whole bullseye. You're transphobe. You're filthy. Get out. You're probably a racist as well, so clear off. It's that kind of strange, weird, cuckoo left-wing thinking. Now, ministers have quietly eased welfare rules so that 16 to 19-year-olds with illnesses or disabilities no longer need to meet the 12-hour education requirement for parents to receive benefits on their behalf. A budget change, which, by the way, costs £25 million a year. This comes after Rachel Reeves highlighted the current welfare system is broken. Let's have a listen to what she said.
We're not going to leave the welfare system unchanged. Under the previous government, in the last 5 years of the Conservative government, spending on welfare increased by 1 percentage point of GDP, equivalent to £88 billion. The OBR, I think in their forecast, showed that as a share of GDP, welfare spending will be broadly flat, but the system's not working, it's broken. And so those sorts of changes are the right things to do.
The right things to do. Julian Jessup, the independent economist, joins us. Julian, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Budgets are always interesting, of course, because it's usually hours, days and a week or so later that you start to drill down and realise what's in it. She said, well, it costs 25 million quid, this new move, which removes the requirement for 12 hours education. That's contentious for many reasons, of course, but let's not write off 25 million quid, because if you look into that budget, there's lots of little 25 million quids knocking around.
Well, that's the problem. There's quite a contrast between her rhetoric on the need to bring welfare spending under control and to reform the system and what they actually seem to be doing. So last week, I think it's another £16 billion of additional spending, most of it on welfare. And more details today about individual programmes that are being expanded or being made more generous. So, I mean, which is it? I mean, are they going to reform the welfare budget to save money and also, of course, to protect the wider interests of the economy and the people involved? I mean, at the end of the day, just giving people money to remain out of work is not a great idea. Or is she really going to tackle this problem? And so far, as I say, you have to go by what people do, not what they say. And all the signs so far have been in the wrong direction. And also with, it's a delicate issue when you talk about disabilities, because nobody, in fact, I don't know a single taxpayer that I've ever met, certainly, that begrudges
spending money on people who are in need. That's the whole point of our system, and we protect the system. There's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't mean to say we don't keep it in check. And having a disability is one thing, claiming anxiety is quite another. And that's the concern with something like this, is that you might find yourself in that bracket where 12 hours of education actually is quite good for your anxiety, but this new policy suggests you won't need to even do that. You can still get whatever payment it happens to be.
Well, obviously, I don't claim to be an expert on the individual detail of these individual benefits and the conditions for claiming them. But I do have a good sense, hopefully, of what's going on in the economy. And if you have a system where an increasingly large amount of money is being transferred from taxpayers, people in work, to people who, many of them are in work, to be fair, about 60% of people are on universal credit, but about 40% of them therefore are not. You have a system that is discouraging work, it's discouraging enterprise, it's quite discouraging in all sorts of ways that the benefit bill seems to be rising all the time. What you ultimately need, I think, is a combination, obviously, of a health and social care system that works better, but also economic growth. Something that provides opportunities for people to go into meaningful work, to have jobs that are productive and do pay, rather than the government just constantly intervening, mandating higher pay when there aren't productivity gains to pay for it. And of course, a lot of what the government has done, including last week, is actually making it harder, particularly for vulnerable younger people, to get into work. So the big increases in the cost of employing a young person, the employment rights bill that is going to penalise job seekers who don't have a long track record of employment, all of this is heading in the wrong direction.
Yeah, spot on. I should get a word from you, Julian, on the OBR, who, of course, in the last hour have released a statement to clarify what happened. There was no cyber attack. This, of course, is the budget leak we're talking about here. I'm sure in all your years of number crunching as an economist, you've never seen anything quite like this. I'd love somebody to tell me in one sentence, did someone just hit send or publish on a computer? Because that kind of sounds like what happened. They have ruled out it wasn't a cyber attack, but interestingly, their statement said this goes to the very heads of those that run the OBR. So there are finger pointing even on their own press release.
Well, I mean, ultimately, the people that run an organisation are responsible for every aspect of running it. So I think that's where they're coming from. Extraordinarily, what seems to have happened was that it was possible to access the document just by guessing what it was going to be called. And since the document is called pretty much the same thing every time around, but they simply changed March to November or whatever at the end, somebody apparently was able to guess what it was. It was as simple as that, which is quite extraordinary. Also, of course, an accident waiting to happen, but it doesn't really encourage your confidence in government IT security.
Not really. So you don't think this was published because somebody wanted like the day before you leave the job, you're going to have the last laugh and publish something?
No, I mean the report, which by the way was turned around very quickly, so lots of credit to those people that did this report. The report makes it clear that there's no connivance or malfeasance by anybody within the OBR. There was just an obvious flaw in the security system that if you're able to remember what the link was for previous budget documents, you could probably work out what the link was for this one.
Crazy. Should somebody walk the plank for this?
No, I think genuine mistakes like this, you're allowed to make them once. I think deliberately misleading the public about the contents of the budget will be rather different.
Yeah. Well, we'll watch with interest. I reckon 6 p.m, Julian, someone's going to walk, but, I know nothing about this area. You know loads about it, so maybe you're on the money here. We'll watch with interest. Julian, thank you. Julian Jessup, independent economist with us on the programme. Guessing the password. Wow. I mean, just think about this. It's a budget, right? It's not like it's a press release where the annual department in the environment area of government announces the most sought after trees that need to be looked after going forward. Is it going to be a silver oak or whatever it's called, an elm or whatever? It's not that. This is the budget. I mean, the implications of being able to guess the budget. And does that mean that somebody the night before could have accessed it and guessed the password? You do wonder, because that could have been really tumultuous. 0344 499 1000. Let's go to your calls. This is Richard in Derbyshire. What have you got for us, Richard? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ian. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure.
Okay, as I said to your member of staff, I think we're missing a bit of a trick in relation to asking if Rachel Reeves should actually go or not. The bigger question is, should the government go? And I've been banging this drum for some time, and I do my other half's head in with it. And your Alex Phillips has said it's turkeys for Christmas. However, you know, what worries me is there's no mechanism available to us as the public to actually remove a government if they are actually this dire, which this government is.
Is there anybody, I don't know, I often say this, Richard, is it because we're all, you, me, people listening to this, because we take notice of what is happening? If you went around the streets with a clipboard, went around the streets of your local town and said, what do you think of the budget? I reckon 9 out of 10 people would say, I didn't see it.
I had the same thing at work when I mentioned the budget, and someone went, what budget? You know, people, and you know, you can't slate people for it. People aren't as politically aware as, you know, myself, the viewers. You know, we have our ear to the ground and we keep abreast of local, you know, developments, so we always do. But I think what's happening now is there is a shift. People are becoming more aware because they have to be. But, you know, it's not just the economics. You know, you look at the debt to GDP ratio. We're not talking about the silly GDP you have when you import lots of people. We're talking about GDP per capita. We're just not financially viable as a country. And it's only a matter of time before investors stop investing in this country. Not zero. You know, it's deindustrialising us. So all these people that we need to get into work to make them more efficient, they've got no jobs to go to.
Yeah, and there was nothing, was there, in that budget that you know, even if you don't know loads about economics or whatever, you didn't hear her say, you know, we're going to go big on business. We want business to be the forefront of everything. We want more people working in these territories. We want to make sure it's the most attractive place on planet Earth to live. There was none of that at all. Nothing.
Nothing. Not a sausage. You know, and that's before you start to get into the myriad of problems when we start talking about the social economic impact of what's happening, and that's a totally other discussion for another show, I'm sure.
Yeah, indeed. Richard,
been banging that drum for a long time.
Keep doing it. Listen, Richard, thank you. Richard in Derbyshire. Paul is in Kent on Rachel Reeves. What have you got for us, Paul? Afternoon.
All right. Good afternoon, Ian, and brilliant show and brilliant station, full stop.
Thank you.
But my uneducated opinion from this budget is that Rachel Reeves has woken up one morning and someone, you know, from the ABS or whatever it's classified as, I'm not an educated man, has gone to her, hey, you've done better than what you think. Yeah. You've got a bit of surplus. And she's gone, yeah, I have. And do you know what I want to do with that? I want to give that to the poor and needy, as I classify myself part as. And then she's gone, I want to lie to the public, and and lie to her politicians and her friends and everyone in this country. A lie is a lie. Yeah. We were raised, and I hope you were raised in the same way. A lie is a lie. You get punished for a lie.
Yeah.
And if you get caught up in it, hey, you take the risk of doing it.
You do. And then, of course, the cover-up is often worse than the lie.
Exactly.
So you end up in that situation.
Yeah, and that's the point. And I appreciate if she woken up and gone, and whatever organisation has told her she's got more money than she thought. Happy days, have a smile on your face.
Mm.
You've done well in your job, even though I don't think she's doing well in her job. But you don't lie to your friends or your colleagues in your job.
Well, you wouldn't think so, but, people do extraordinary things. And, I think this is sort of one... Go on.
Trust me, I know that, Ian, in life.
Yeah.
I've been homeless, and I got told it would take me 10 years to find a home. And I broke the law, and I'll get given one in 2 years.
Wow.
And I'm being honest, truly honest with you, and we won't go into details for honesty.
Okay, no, that's fair, but, well, at least you didn't lie about the second bit. Yeah. No, listen, you're telling the truth now. I hear you.
Correctly, I broke the law because,
But I'm being honest, you don't lie.
You don't lie, and you're taught that from being a kid. I try to, and thank you, Paul, for that. I hope you're doing well, by the way. Thank you. I love what you're telling us there. It is a really very sort of simple, basic part, isn't it, of upbringing. That my elder son yesterday told me that my younger son had said something very badly, very bad, and so the younger one shouts, no, I didn't, no, I didn't, no, I didn't, like they do. And I walked into the kitchen and I said to him, right, okay, you always tell me the truth, don't you? Did you call him that? And he looked at me and went, yes. Brilliant. I'll train this boy well. And I love that, even though he's conceding something that wasn't very nice and wasn't very pleasant and shouldn't have called his brother that. I mean, who tells their brother they look like Rachel Reeves? I mean, come on. I mean, that really is up there as one of the most egregious things. So social services will be knocking on the door soon. But lying is fundamental, isn't it, to the human condition? And it's often not just the lie, it's the cover-up of the lie that kind of gets you. When you're given the opportunity, as I did with my kids there, to tell the truth, Rachel Reeves or Keir Starmer was given the opportunity to tell the truth. Just tell us what actually happened, and this can all go away. There's a way of fixing this. But no, the doubling down on it, and then you end up in the situation that our government are in. Look, it wouldn't have made much difference to me because I think they're bonkers anyway. But you could have at least said that, well, they conceded to it. All right, they got it wrong. They conceded to it. They made a mistake. They will never do that. It's almost, you're almost trained like that in government. Titch says, a quote from me, Ian Collins, no sane person can be a fan of Donald Trump. Incorrect, Mr. Collins. Well, actually, let me just put a little tiny bit of meat on the bones of that, Titch, because no sane person should be a fan of any politician. Your disposition should always be, I don't trust any of these people, left, right, or somewhere in the middle. By dint of the fact they want to become politicians, there's probably something a little bit wrong with them. So that should be your starting point. Can you respect a politician? Yes. Being a fan of a politician, it's not a football club, it's not your greatest film star, it's not a great musician that you really idolise, etc. They're politicians, they're meant to be good. Trump has so many attributes that are positive and other leaders could draw from. I think, things like calling a journalist a piggy, I don't think that's funny. I don't think it's funny at all. I think it's bloody rude, frankly. He's lucky he didn't get a smack in the chops from her, because I think that's how many would have wanted to react. His past financially, I mean, you can mention the sexual stuff if you want, but financially, if nothing else, that I think deserves a bit of scrutiny. He's the president, the leader of the free world, for God's sake. You shouldn't be armour-plated from criticism, and if you criticise, you shouldn't somehow therefore be... Because every time I say this, somebody goes, you must be a lefty. No, what criticising Donald Trump makes you a left? I mean, it's bizarre. That's the kind of world we live in. That's the sort of black and white nature that we live in at the moment. But there you go, Titch. Nothing wrong with being a supporter of Donald Trump. Being a fan, that's a whole different ballgame. 0344 499 1000 is where you will find us. This is Talk. Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Matt in Bromley says, whether Rachel Reeves lied or not, how can anyone trust her the next time she stands at the dispatch box? She should resign because she's lost public trust. I mean, it's a brilliant point, isn't it? It's an obvious one. Because now there is this dark cloud of lies and malfeasance, whatever you want to call it, that hangs over the Treasury. So credibility's shot to bits. Well, I think they rely on the fact that we were just in conversation with a second ago on most people not noticing. Right, just before the news at 3, we brought you the voice of doom, mystery voice of a political angle. Here's the voice.
Rightly and properly.
Did anybody get that correct? Let me bring you some of the guesses we had. Harold Macmillan, no. Tony Benn, no. Douglas Murray, you shower, no. Malcolm Rifkin, can we hear it again, Amy?
Rightly and properly.
I can see why somebody might say Malcolm Rifkin, but it is not Malcolm Rifkin. But is it Michael Heseltine? A couple of guesses for Michael Heseltine. One more time, Amy?
Rightly and properly.
It is not Michael Heseltine. We haven't got a winner, so it rolls over, or it follows over, to tomorrow at the same time, just before the news at 3. Voice of Doom, day 14, is back. Let's go back to your calls once our producer Alicia has lined one up. In the meantime, let's go, oh, is Norman here now? He's not there either. Oh, my screen's gone a little bit skew-if. Let's go to a couple of comments here. Chris in Ottershaw says, I remember back in the late 1990s, judges being instructed by the Blair government that judges were not to use common sense when making judgment to work. No wonder the Labour backbenchers were happy. They don't govern for Britain, they govern for their jobs. And do you know what? That's absolutely true. Children under 18, we mentioned this at the beginning, have appeared over 1,600 times on Police Live facial recognition watch lists across 6 forces. The government, of course, is consulting on the permanent use of facial recognition by 43 forces, despite concerns over accuracy for minors and civil liberties. Let's get a word from former cop of over 30 years, Norman Brennan, who always tells it like it is. Good afternoon to you, Norman. Nice to have you with us as ever. Now, of course, there is such a thing as evolution. You know, crime techniques and crime-solving techniques change all the time. Once upon a time, they didn't have fingerprints. Once upon a time, they didn't have CCTV cameras. And once upon a time, they didn't have facial recognition. Is this just the next evolution of crime fighting?
Well, it is. I mean, let's be honest about it, Ian. We rarely see a police officer on the streets anymore. And the public used to be our eyes and our ears. Well, the public don't see the police. They don't feel reassured. Victims rarely get a police attendance and their crimes investigated. So the police must use anything and everything they have in the toolbox. And this is a very good tool in the toolbox, in so much as it does facial recognition of those who have committed very serious offences, are wanted on warrant, have escaped from prison, and even children that have committed some of the most heinous crimes on our statute books. So it's only right that the police can use anything and everything to arrest those people, because whilst they're on the streets, they're a threat to society, both from the crimes that they commit or certainly when it comes to murder and stabbings and carrying knives, these are the types of people we want arrested and put before the courts and sent to prison. And within a minute or two, although a camera can take hundreds, if not thousands of impressions, if they're not wanted, they're deleted. So there should be no real concern from the Big Brother mob saying this is affecting our privileges and our right to walk the streets.
It's a good point, and you're absolutely right. I didn't quite, when I first read this story, Norman, I wasn't quite sure. I thought, have I read this wrongly? Are they saying that, you know, this is people who've done nothing wrong that have been picked up? But of course, that isn't the suggestion here. The suggestion by some who don't like this is that it shouldn't involve kids. Well, I'm sorry, that's like saying, you know, we're not going to, you know, when we're out on the beat, on the occasions you do see a Bobby on the beat, we're not going to look for kids doing things wrongly. I mean, that would be ridiculous. If we have facial recognition out there and that capability, people might not like it, but as long as it's there, it's going to look for a wrong 'un, whether they're 10 or 110.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, we live in an era of society and in history now where we are going through one of the worst times this country has seen in several hundred years, where we used to have wars. We used to have governments run out of town, put in the tower, executed at dawn if they failed the British people. Well, we've moved on a bit there. We're a little bit more humane. And yes, I saw your earlier comments about the is it Reeves, the shadow, well,
the Chancellor.
Sorry, the Chancellor, just getting back. Everyone's going for her at the moment. Well, the thing is that we have become a very distracted country. We seem to be distracted from all the serious issues that we're concerned about. What we really should be concerned about is protecting our borders, protecting our streets, and ensuring that the law-abiding public can go about their business in some sort of safety. And what I will say, Ian, as well, I was out only recently with a senior Met homicide detective who was telling me about brand new AI system that they've got in place. I can't say too much about it at the moment because the Met will do it sometime in the future. But what they've done is they've looked at previous homicides, for example, looked at all the evidence, all the CCTV, all of the witness statements and everything they could, and they put it into a system. And the system came back like with a suspect or the types of person, where they live, where they sort of associate. And he said that the results are absolutely almost 100%. So the police are doing as much as they can. Sure. And things like the facial recognition that we were talking about, why should it concern anybody? If it's going to make you, your family, your work colleagues, your children safer on the streets, travelling on public transport or going down to seaside resorts, why shouldn't the police do everything in their power to ensure that those that are likely to blight you are taken off the streets and out of circulation?
And on that point, I don't think anybody could agree with it when you put it like that, Norman. Thank you for your time as ever. Always great to hear your tones on these issues. Norman Brennan, former cop. Why should it bother anybody? I suppose the argument that comes back from that was it doesn't bother you then. Let's just have a camera in your front garden pointing at your house all day. Do that to every single house. What have you got to worry about? You could argue that case. Facial recognition, I just sense, is, you know, absolutely bang in the middle of what would be seen as the general evolution of fighting crime via the conduit of a camera. But it is this kind of stuff that does often hold up court cases, as we said earlier, because there's so much of it, so much data that we never had before. Norman's in Dartford, another Norman. Good afternoon to you, Norm.
Good afternoon, Ian. I've been following this budget leak and the OBR, what they threw out the water really on Friday, was it?
Yeah.
And I've been all weekend. You get the they do the rounds. You know, you had what's it, Douglas Murray, was it? Rachel Reeves doing it the weekend, and all of a sudden this new word crept in, headroom.
Yeah.
It's not a new word. It's a new word in this argument.
Got to have your headroom. If you haven't got your head, you're nothing without your headroom, Norman.
No. And I'm thinking, hello, they've had 2 or 3 days to think up of what they're going to do.
Yeah. Headroom.
You know, they lied all the way. And political commentators have been on every bloody programme, and they condone lying. They lied. You can't dress it up and say they meant headroom, they meant this, they meant that. They said there was a black hole. Well, we've got 4.2 billion in this black hole.
Well, it was literally confirmed by Downing Street confirmed the Prime Minister was happy with the speech by Rachel Reeves that critics said misled the public about the need for tax rises. Now, he was happy of it. This was despite him being made aware of official forecasts that showed that her fiscal rules would be met and that the OBR downgrade to productivity had not led to a shortfall in public finances. So he knew both things. He knew what the OBR had said and he knew what Rachel Reeves' speech was going to be. So which is it? How can he say he didn't know?
Well, I don't
Downing
know.
Street confirmed that, by the way.
Is he saying he didn't know? Because there's ministers now saying...
No, he's saying he did. He's saying he did know. The Prime Minister was happy with her speech.
Yeah, he did know.
And he was made aware of those official forecasts that showed the fiscal rules would be met. And all of her music was, no, you know, I've got this big black hole I've got to deal with, so that's why I've got to do this with taxes. When, of course, she didn't have to do that because what she was doing is saving her own skin and Keir Starmer's skin by coming out with a left-wing budget. That simple.
That's obvious. But I mean, I just don't understand the politics now. It doesn't matter if you lie. It doesn't matter.
Well, it's kind of expected, isn't it? It's kind of expected, it seems. Listen, Norman, I've got to move because we are late, but brilliant observations. Again, great calls on this. Norman in Dartford. Thank you to him. Back to you shortly. 0344 499 1000. I want to drill down a little bit into this new Corbyn party as well. That's called, ridiculously at the moment, called Your Party. Doesn't really make much sense. Apparently it's a holding name. We'll talk to James Mathewson, former Labour Party spokesman, on that very story in just a couple of moments here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Always look forward to Kev being on. If that's when you're making a bit of grub in the kitchen, grab yourself a beer out the fridge, make away and listen to O'Sullivan. It's the greatest way to spend a couple of hours, I'm telling you. He's back tonight at 7 o'clock. Preceding that will be Mark Dolan, who's on Drive this afternoon at 4 o'clock. Now, let's move to this story, the Your Party story. What is happening with Zara Sultana and Jeremy Corbyn? Their first conference erupt in a bit of conflict. Already, Sultana refused to enter the venue in Liverpool after several of her allies were removed, she said, accusing Corbyn of leading a witch hunt, despite his openly calling for unity. Different members even took to the floor to highlight issues that they had with the party. Let's have a listen to one such speaker who made his points known at the beginning of the conference.
Hi there, conference. My name is Erin from Glasgow. When this party started, it included 2 MPs who were openly transphobic, one of whom was a landlord. This party preaches unity and equality for its working class members.
I'm sorry, I need to stop you there for calling them transphobic from the rostrum. Can you please stick to the motion?
Two members who allegedly expressed transphobic views.
Let's get a word from James Mathewson, former Labour Party spokesman. James, good afternoon to you. I mean, we've spoken so many times on these kind of issues of the sort of what the left are doing to either reinvent or appease people outside of the sort of metropolitan bubble of Keir Starmerism. And this would have been a great opportunity. I said to you, I think only last week, I totally understand the purity of Corbyn-type politics in the sense that if you are a left-wing voter, that's where you might want to go. Does what it says on the tin. You know all about him. But this seems like carnage at the moment. What the heck is happening over there at the Your Party Institute?
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it, Ian? Quickly, just before I come on to that, though, Erin, who just spoke at the Your Party conference, is a trans woman, I believe, who uses she, her pronouns. So, you know, you said him, just to pick you up on that. If you could use their correct pronouns, that would only be polite, Ian. If
well, no, she can use, or he can use whatever he likes. I mean, I can't change science, can I?
She.
It was a geezer. Somebody Seriously. Pretending to be a woman Mate, or identifying as a woman. I actually thought it's actually written on my screen, Aaron.
It's Erin.
What? I mean, Aaron. I mean, what? Why would? I mean, this is the very problem, isn't it? You're highlighting now, James, the very issue that is.
I'll come on and I'll give you a perspective on the left and what's happening with your party.
Yeah.
I'll happily do that, but I would ask that you, because the thing for me,
I don't know Erin or Aaron. I don't know that person.
By the way,
I don't know who they are
either. The point is, for me, we talk about British values on this channel.
Is that a British value for me to call a man a woman?
It's a British value to be polite and respectful.
Well, I wasn't being impolite. I actually thought it was, I promise you, I thought that was somebody called Aaron. It's written down in front of me. Aaron, Your Party openly transphobic. That's the cue into it. I had no idea. Looked like a bloke, sounded like a bloke, and had long hair. What's wrong with that?
Cool. Well, it's just important for your viewers to get the perspective.
Yeah.
But anyway, moving on.
Go on.
Yeah, so your party is an absolute shambles, as we know. There's no surprise to this, though. Like, I'm fighting every fibre in my being not to say I told you so. I wrote a piece for The Independent a couple of months back that said this would happen. Anybody who has been near Jeremy Corbyn or Zara Sultana should know this would have happened, right? Like, I'll be totally honest with you, Ian, and it's not a popular opinion. It doesn't make me popular amongst friends or colleagues on the left, especially former colleagues. But both of them two people, Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultana, have done more damage to the British left in the past 6 months than basically anybody else in the country. Now, if you say that, then of course you're deemed to be a right-winger or a Blairite or something in disguise. But until the left can realise that its obsession with infighting and the minutiae of detail among itself is not important, it's not relevant to anybody, and until it can take the fight outwards and come and talk to people that it disagrees with, then unfortunately we'll just repeat this round and round in circles.
But isn't that I mean, look, listen, you and I oddly agree on quite a lot, because I think what you just said there is absolutely bang on. And I thought Jeremy Corbyn was the answer to the issues of those with a left-wing appetite of their politics. I don't know whether it's because of his co-founder or whether it's the people behind his... I don't know who's responsible.
It's
but
the people
whole
around Jeremy. Yeah, it's the people around Jeremy a lot of the time.
Well,
and Jeremy himself, by the way, because he does this thing where he's passive and he's everyone's friendly old grandpa, right? Let me tell you, I put in years of work and campaigning and activism in the Labour Party. I worked for the UK Parliament under Jeremy's leadership when it was the 2017-2019 general elections, and we frittered away the opportunity to genuinely help people in this country while saying the most empty and meaningless promises, because none of those people actually care about winning power and transforming Britain. They care about petty grudges, axe grinding, and also just their own egos a lot of the time. If Jeremy wants to be the leader of something, that's what's most important to him.
But do you know what? Doesn't that rather... And by the way, the first clip we played was merely to highlight what was going on at the conference rather than the specific content of what happened. It could have been any one of that person could have said anything at all. But in a way, have you not kind of highlighted the problem as well? Because they're talking about... Erin is talking about transphobia. I mean, if the definition of transphobia is what you've just thrown at me by calling me the P word because I didn't know that it was...
I didn't call you transphobic. You've said it's a mistake. That's absolutely fine. But I said you don't. But
it's that you were disturbed by what I'd said about someone else, even though I had literally no clue about what I'd said about someone else. So that's that infighting, is it? You lefties can't leave it alone. When you spot it, you think there's a flipping injustice, and you've got to go for the jugular.
It's not that kind of thing. It's more the. A political party, right, is meant to do a job. That's what it is. I don't want to be friends with people, Ian. I didn't get into politics. I have no friends. You can clip that for social media if you want. But I have no friends in politics, right? Or very few at least, because they're boring. They're boring people. I work with them. I've been around them for years, all right? I didn't get into politics to make pals, and I don't want to be part of some club or society that meets up and makes jam. All right, these people should be a necessary evil. That's what politicians should be. They should be there to try and represent our political views and make sure that our democracy has representation across the board. Now, that's why people on your channel, I don't believe most of them are left-wing, but they should still support, in theory, a strong left-wing.
100%. That's what I said to you last week, which is why I thought,
that's why I think it's so important.
Should be a strong force.
Yeah, but that's why it's so important that they just abandon this project right now. The Greens, right? I am not a Green. I don't label myself as an environmentalist first and foremost. I think that's what they are. And I disagree with them on many things, from nuclear power to defence. However, they are doing a much better job at vocalising some of the socially liberal policies that we want to see from the left. Unfortunately, Jeremy Corbyn, Zara Sultana, they're not up to the job. They need to step aside and they need to abandon this project. Give the people their money back, by the way, 800 grand they've had. They need to give people their money back, and they need to stop trying to put themselves at the centre of political movements that they cannot manage.
On that point, James, thank you, sir. James Mathewson, former Labour Party conference. Slight potty mouth on some occasions. Not sure if you heard that or not, but going. I mean, he went genitalia bound early doors, didn't he? Wasn't messing around there. Straight for the, word. Think aubergines. 0344. Am I bothered? 0344 499 1000 is where you'll find us. This one from Martin, Whitley Bay. Just seen the footage of your party inauguration. What a cast of characters. You could argue Thatcher did a lot of good, but closing the asylums was unforgivable. We clearly need them now more than ever. Nut jobs. And look, I'd say it again. I think any party in any democracy, if you're a supporter of democracy, then you're a supporter of all the warts and all and weirdness that goes with it. There's nothing wrong with that. People will decide for themselves at the ballot box whether they think you're any cop. But talk about own goals. And when I saw what was going on there, and we had the speaker, Erin, not Aaron, it's Erin, apparently, who identifies as a she. And by the way, I genuinely did not know that. If that is the kind of state of play at the beginning of their conference, they're arguing over flipping pronouns, and people are scratching their head going, why are we not getting any support? Because nobody cares about your pronouns. You can be who you want to be. You can identify how you want to identify. I'm sure I would sit down and break bread with Erin, okay, and have a pint and a cup of tea. Well, maybe not a pint, but maybe a cup of cha. I would have no problem with them. None whatsoever. But that isn't for me to then suddenly, oh, I've got to now adhere and change my lexicon, and we've got to alter scientific-based facts and all the rest of it. I don't want to insult someone. Fine, be who you want. The rest of us can't roll over and adhere to whatever your choice of identity might well be. And if that's what they're arguing about, then I'm afraid what would have happened on the left of politics at the weekend is loads more people would have gone, oh, that Polanski bloke that runs the Green Party, he's great. Spoiler alert, he's flipping not. He's an absolute nut job. That's another story. But he's probably preferable than listening to Aaron than listening to Corbyn and Sultana and all the rest of them. I mean, come on, sort yourselves out. But as James did say, these guys can't stop having a row. They just can't stop rowing. Ah, you said this, or you think that you're not part of this clan or this group. You're not quite left-wing enough. They're flipping bonkers, all right? Glad they're not in power. 0344 499 1000. Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk 0344 499 1000. It's 10 to 4. Back to your calls. Alan is in Staffordshire. Alan, what have you got for us? Good afternoon. Can you hear us, Alan? We'll get Alan back, or somebody back, I'm sure. Phil in Portsmouth referenced facial recognition. This falls to the ground when most youngsters these days have hoodies and balaclavas, and dare I say it, burqas as well. It kind of does, really. I mean, if somebody isn't showing their face, I would imagine the entire process is completely null and void. Alan, how you doing? We tried to get Alan back there. We couldn't get him back. One in from... Oh, let's go to Peter in Dorset. Peter, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Hey, thank goodness for that. There's a massive amount of relief around here when you spoke. What have you got for us, Peter? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Well, perhaps you can enlighten me, being far more intelligent than I am. We have a situation whereby the two top people in government have obviously blatantly lied, and there has to be a way that they can be prosecuted in this country. Unfortunately, we've got a lot of Fabian bunches in charge of the justice system, which doesn't help. But the situation is we are effectively now not being run by the people who voted for having Labour in.
Yeah.
At the time, we have this country is being run by a few hundred people who happen to be in Westminster, and this is where.
Are you talking about civil servants here?
No, I'm talking about we've got the MPs. Okay, there's the civil servants as well.
Yep.
But there has to be a way, having blatantly, it's not even is there an argument about it? Let's face it, how they can be prosecuted and prosecuted in a huge way, and we have. But the way I look at it is that the country is in such a vast majority feeling, whether you're conservative or reform, or even the poor silly people who voted Labour in as Labour supporters, they probably can't believe, half of them, what this government is doing.
Yeah.
They're probably old hat Labour voters who have been voting for the last 150 years and just continue to say, well, we're getting rid of the Conservatives, let's get Labour in. But they could not believe what's happening now. They're probably rubbing their chins, the whole lot of them. But it's, where are we going to go with this? Now, in my mind, you can either have a situation of general strike, you can have totally freezing the country to a complete and utter standstill, whereby it would force a general election, because we're not a country that has revolutions and all of that kind of caper, but there has to be a civilized way of dealing with this, because what they've done in 14 months is eye-watering, and on a daily basis, every single day when we listen to your programme and we listen to what's going on, there is just another headline come out which is worse and worse and worse.
Yep.
And we are now getting into a situation of complete Stasi-like proportions in the justice system. And
with all the jury stuff.
All the jury stuff.
Yeah.
And how some people have gone to jail for 31 months and others have gone to...
Although that some of that happened under the Tories as well, of course.
Look, the situation is there are things that are bad in this economy and in this country that are due to past governments going back a long way.
True.
And not just the 14 years that the Conservatives were in, before that as well. It goes back a long way, that so much has been neglected in the country.
Yep.
And now we're paying for it, but not in the way we should be paying for it now. And it's really quite hysterical when they're saying we're going to get rid of austerity. Well, my God, they're going to call such austerity.
What do people
what they're doing? It's quite extraordinary.
Indeed, and thank you, Peter, for that very powerful stuff. And when they talk about austerity, it's become meaningless, really, isn't it? It's about like the word racism. It's sort of no longer me if you just apply it to anything you don't like. The Tories did about 2 years of austerity, which, by the way, every department of government during the entire time the Tories were in power increased its spending. So I don't know where the austerity was, frankly. And then you hear a Labour MP come on and go, 14 years of austerity. It's like, whoa, hang on a second. Where did the 14 years come from? We'd spent like Billio in half that time paying people's wages who weren't even going to work. And you know what my old nan would have said about this? Thank goodness Mark Dolan exists.
Well, I'm here to fix everything. I have all the answers. Ian Collins.
New Chancellor, everybody, breaking news.
From 4 o'clock, looking after Drive this afternoon, I'll
Yes.
be continuing the excellent conversation you've been conducting since 1. What next? And be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
Reeves is provably dishonest, provably incompetent. Her replacement will likely be more left-wing and more radical and further adrift from where the British public are and further adrift from the spreadsheet, right? The actual balance sheet of this country. We are broke.
Yeah.
And yet now we've got political and economic chaos and a lot of policies that are going to make the country poorer.
It's a great point, isn't it? We discussed it this afternoon. Some said it's politically expedient for the Tories to retain Rachel Reeves.
Oh, yeah.
Because, you know, all the while you've got these sort of wounded animals in power.